Cubelic in the morning with you. Wednesday, January 22nd. Jocks 94.5. Listen online, jocksfm.com. App is in your app store, iPhone, Android. You can download that for free. Watch live on YouTube. Search Jocks 945. As we continue our reaction to the national championship game in Ohio State being the national champions. Here's what we got for you today. A lot of college football in the first hour. We're going to try to knock out a lot of it because there's a lot of different things that we want to get to, talk about that we didn't really hit yesterday. Monday, I kind of teased MVP of the college football playoff. We never really got to that. Didn't take a deep dive into it. Top 25 going into next year. There's no way we're going to give you 14 through 25, so y'all can have that.
Come on.
We will talk about teams that we think maybe will be in the playoff next year. Should be.
What about 13?
Not going to go there either.
First team out?
Maybe just teams that we think, as of today, should be in the college football playoff next year. Will be in the college football playoff next year. Either way you want to spin that one. Talk about that one. We can do that. Maybe top 5 players entering 2025. Is it just an easy Jeremiah Smith number 1?
I mean, does anyone else even play?
No. Don't even sign up for it.
Jeremiah Smith, first world.
Player or problem?
What do you mean? Confused now. You lost me.
So we'll get into some of that. There are multiple outlets with their way too early top 25. We'll kind of compare, contrast.
Those
a couple
must
of
do a
surprises.
lot of clicks or something.
I'll raise my hand right now. I am a
Guilty
sucker.
of the click.
I am a sucker for them. I like to just see some of the reasoning behind why one outlet, by the way, that we'll discuss has Auburn much higher than you might expect going into next season.
Yeah, Tiger Illustrated.
That the LSU publication, or I'm sorry, Clemson publication does not have Auburn very high in their preseason
you
top
family.
25. We will discuss that though. We've got Kirk Morrison to talk NFL playoffs at 8. We'll begin to break down Championship Sunday, one of my favorite sports days of the year. And then Andrea Adelson has an article out right now on the Ohio State path to a national championship. It's a good read. It's kind of cool. She did a nice job. How some of the things changed. Of course, a lot of the conversation is about what Ryan Day went through and how this thing sort of morphed, and maybe some people that deserve some more credit than are getting it. And then Richard Hendricks at 9:15. We will talk Alabama basketball with him. He was on the call for the Crimson Tide's win last night. It's another good win for the Tide. 103-87. They knock off Vanderbilt last night. And 100-point games, Greg, becoming the norm for Nate Oates' team in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, it's amazing, man. I mean, I remember back in the day when I was in school, and I loved going to college basketball games. Before I was a starter, I think I went every single home game. I mean, we didn't miss it. But goodness gracious, there were years when it's like, man, I hope we can get to 60 today.
60.
Man, dude, 50 in the Anthony Grant era. Seriously, it was tough to watch. It really was. But I think coming off the loss last week with the performance to Ole Miss, it's really been clean ever since. I'm a little bit concerned about Cliff. Took that shot to the ribs. That's something that I just hope it doesn't have any lingering effects. Obviously not anything that you can do about it. I mean, he's a big boy and he's strong and he's a physical player, but ribs, having had them before, are a problem, and they don't get better very soon. I think Diabate.
I'm a big fan of ribs.
Yeah, huge fan of eating ribs. Not a fan of injured ribs and or bruised/broken ribs. But here's hoping that it won't be anything too significant and it won't have many issues whatsoever. Diabate continues to be fantastic. Holloway has been terrific as well. Have just really enjoyed what we've seen in response to the disappointing performance last week.
And Nate's done a good job finding a spot for Aiden Holloway, kind of getting him comfortable. We didn't see him get going at Auburn last year, but has found a little bit more than a role here.
He's really good.
Yeah, in this Alabama offense, I think everybody kind of knew that he could shoot, knew what he's capable of, and he's kind of been able to get that going a little bit. So we'll talk more college basketball. Auburn remains the number 1 team in the AP poll. 7 straight week, the SEC has been atop the AP poll. I mentioned 103-87 last night for the Crimson Tide over Vandy. 6 100-point game this season. How many teams have more than that in Division I? 0.
OFA?
Second most in a season in the last 75 years. 23-24 had 10 100-point games. And Mark Sears goes over 2,500 career points, 25-12 now, most of any active Division I player. He had 21 points last night, 10 of 13 from the free throw line, 7 assists, 8th game with 20 points, 5 assists. That's the most in D1 this year as well. Vanderbilt, that 16-point loss, largest this season. They are 2-3 over the last 5 games. They have struggled here recently. Actually, SEC teams, we've talked about playing on the road. SEC teams beginning to really struggle on the road. SEC teams now are 17-26 in conference play on the road this year. That is under 40%. So we knew that it was going to be tough because there are a lot of good teams. Obviously, these venues, difficult to go play in, and that is sort of proving itself right now for Southeastern Conference clubs. All right, national championship game. You and I were talking about this in the office before. Just kind of, I've watched the game a couple of times now, and usually, I believe you're the same way here. You watch these games a couple of times, you kind of focus in on certain things, and something begins to sort of stick out. Something begins to pop, and you're like, oh man, this really like how they did this, or this was a massive key to how they won the game. It just, there are not a lot of those things for me in this game. I thought Ohio State had more success with a play designed to be run between the tackles. You and I talked on Monday morning that we thought outside run was going to be a problem because Notre Dame liked the linebacker run through, got a little bit aggressive at times. The tight end play for Ohio State could be pretty good on the edges, and those backs, when they turned it off tackle upfield, they could make plays. It was actually more of a duo play, which is essentially an inside run power play. If it's just on double teams, it would look a lot like an inside zone. Using the splitter, which is the tight end coming flat across the line of scrimmage, and then a bit of a scissors concept with that where you kind of show counter by the back, but it's an inside run. They cut that thing back. Henderson had one big cutback. The Judkins big run was on that. That stuck out. I thought the Ohio State tight ends, I'm not going to say that they were just dominant, but I thought they really helped in this game. They did a good enough job to open some things up. But cutback runs, Greg, and it's Al Golden has utilized linebacker run through very well this year. It may have kind of worked against him in this game.
I think they felt like they had to force the issue a little bit. And you think about how that game went. They didn't have many options, man. I mean, they were decimated up front. They were getting moved off the ball. The cutback lanes were brutal. I honestly think, I think Quinchon's got great vision. I think Trayvion's pretty good as well. But it's almost like they told them all game long, hey, guys, you're going to have cutback. Like the cutback lane's going to be there. And it was pretty obvious based on how early into their path or track they were already eyeing the cutback. If you look at their head, it was already swiveling back in that direction before they even made the move. So I think they probably knew that they can get them running play side. And if you look at the Penn State game, the cutback lanes were there, but this was a more severe cutback in this game than it was for the Penn State. Penn State kind of hit it up inside, almost kind of right towards the middle and more right towards the middle of the wash. Had they bent it back, I don't know, a gap or two more, probably would have had some more success. So I think they probably saw that on tape, and that was a big point of emphasis coming in, and it played out.
It was. And you had big players make big plays. I mean, at the end of the day, like you said, Travion Quinshon had big runs. Will Howard made great throws. Jeremiah Smith made some big plays. And defensively, I thought the Ohio State defensive line, even though it might not have appeared to be, a lot of just bust through one-on-one 5-yard loss TFLs, they disrupted the game.
Yes.
On a very consistent basis and forced runs to go different directions, forced the quarterback Riley Leonard to move in the pocket, get rid of the ball a little bit. He wasn't comfortable delivering many passes in that game, maybe none. And I think that also had a big impact on it. The man coverage thing didn't have a ton to do with it. I didn't think about. I mean, a lot of what Ohio State hit, I thought were, they hit some crossers. They hit some whip routes. I felt like kind of some comeback plays, and I don't know how it didn't feel like they. It's like Chip knew when to run plays that were going to beat zone and beat man. Like he kind of had them. I feel like he had their number a little bit from a coverage perspective.
Yeah, and there wasn't as much zone either. I mean, just the shallow crosses killed him. Jordan Clark, number 1, had been really good up to that point of the postseason. And I think that was the first time I saw people really threaten them with the crossfield routes. I mean, it's hard to cover those. Imagine a guy running through traffic, dodging linebackers, and you're trying to keep up with the first round wide receiver potentially in the Mecca guy that's probably going to be picked at or near the end of the first round. That's hard. That's
more
hard
catches
to do.
than anybody in Ohio State history. Not happening.
That's a hard ask. And they're attacking them at different levels. I mean, how many different completions did Will Howard have on over routes and shallows?
Before you go further, what's the adjustment defensively for that? Or what are you not doing to be able to defend? Is it just not being able to keep up athletically?
You can cut the crosser with the safety. And so they would change responsibilities, but you'd have to have the safety low enough and taking the right angle. So if a safety is lined up there in the middle of the field, let's say it's Xavier Watts, and you see shallow cross coming, he can now go and cut that shallow cross, and whoever was responsible for the guy covering the cross can go back to the middle of the field. It's just really hard to pull off. You see it sometimes on deeper developing routes, but on shallows, it's hard to do because there's more ground to make up. It can be done. It's just hard. And you probably run the risk of giving up even more big plays if you do that. So I'm not sure it's the right play. I probably would have just stuck with what it was and hoped that Will Howard made an inaccurate throw, because to be honest with you, the best thing to cover that is a guy that throws it behind or on the back hip of a guy on a shallow cross, which happens all the time. So it's a hard route to cover, especially if you're a man team. And gosh, they probably hit 6 of them, maybe 7 in the game.
Yeah, that was a big part of Ohio State moving the football. So we'll continue to take a little bit of a dive into that game across the course of the show this morning. Talk a little bit more about Ohio State going into next year. We've heard a lot about this, what do you call it, blueprint, plan, the foundation of how Ohio State built this. Is it sustainable for them, one, and can other people just sort of steal that model and find similar success? I think that's easier said than done because of what we talked about with the guys that have been inside that program for a long time. But a lot on the tap for the show today, 800-239-9569 if you want to get in. We can hit the college football playoff, continue talking about exactly how it should be altered or what you liked about it this year. A lot of time yesterday on just this entire season, if it was good, if it was bad, watching the game, not watching the game. Whatever you do, keep in mind we're in the middle of flu season. Make your home healthier with Trane's Clean Effects Home Air Cleaner. Removes up to 99.9% of airborne particles, including those that cause virus. 100 times more effective than standard air filters. 8 times more effective than HEPA room filters. Find a dealer near you at Trane.com. It's hard to stop a train. I'm interested to talk about some of the teams going into next season that we feel like should be in the mix, or maybe even right now say should be in the playoff. The odds to win the national championship next year are out. Some, not surprising at all. Others, you kind of look at and say, really, that far of odds or that good of odds? We'll discuss those and more next on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Maybe take a little bit of a left turn here, as we had to take yesterday with the last-minute snow day that we put together. Got home yesterday. GMAC wife was she had enough. Looked at the kids and said, "Let's go. We got to get out of here."
Yeah.
Drove to one trampoline park, closed for the day. Drove to other trampoline park. That's now a Ross Dress for Less. Drove to trampoline park in Hoover. That's now a Crunch Fitness. Searching for ideas.
Tell me trampoline parks are not
just driving around. Give me an indoor activity, folks.
You're telling me spending $40 for your kids to go jump up and down when you have a perfectly good usable bed in your master bedroom?
Exactly. So I said, you know what? Hell with it. Dave & Buster's, here we come. One of like 7 people in there, and ended up leaving with a $75 stuffed animal and plastic dog tags chain.
I mean, what could go wrong?
Thank you, Dave and Buster, both, for that. Had fun playing the games to get it, though, but it took a lot. We're going to go to Mike Golick Jr. now on the Buyers Right Hotline. You covered, well, did you cover, or were you just a fan at the national championship game?
Split duty, a little bit of coverage, a lot of fandom, tons of sadness.
Yeah, you'll talk about it on your show,
No doubt.
Obviously you'll get that going. But folks need to know before we get further into this conversation, you are still currently at Hartsfield International Airport. It is Wednesday morning. The game was Monday night. What is happening?
Well, here's the brief timeline of what's gone on here. So about 1:30 yesterday afternoon, me and my dad both had flights around, 4:30, 4:40 p.m. Eastern, out of here, both out of similar terminals. And so we thought, you know what, we're already out of our hotel rooms, the media hospitality lounge. I've already eaten enough of their food. Why don't we just get over to the airport? We can chill in the Sky Lounge, and we'll wait out our flights here. So we got over here. We got through security, all that stuff, probably around 1:45, 2 o'clock Eastern, and then both proceeded to watch our various flights get delayed into oblivion, got on the plane, spent 4 hours on the runway.
No.
Got, those little pulleys that pull the plane? Well, we're out waiting to get de-iced. One of those broke in front of our plane, so they had to bring out another pulley to pull us out from behind the broken pulley on the tarmac just to bring us back to the gate. Then we deplane there, and so begins the volley of delays that led to the flight getting delayed, and that's the fun rub, at 2 a.m. in time for them to not be able to get us hotel rooms. And so I have, guys, never seen more light blue blankets in my life on people sleeping at various spots throughout this airport. I think I've had 5 different meals between the McDonald's here by my gate and various Delta Sky lounges. So we're holding on by a thread, but we are fighting the good fight right now.
Well, and the McDonald's ice cream machine was broken?
You know what? And that's on me for expecting any different. You guys know this. That's just the standard, right? Like, the ice cream machine's supposed to be broken. And so I made the mistake in a moment of weakness to say, you know what? Airport calories not counting right now. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. Surely I can work this off another time. And they promptly matumboed me away from that thing, shaking their finger in disgust that I would even begin to intimate that the ice cream machine would work.
Are you flying back to Los Angeles?
I am. That is, at least right now, that's the plan. We'll see if that, the travel gods have decided against that or not.
Brutal.
So we always have this fun journey. Like Greg and I talk about it a lot, going to semi-regional places. Like Greg drove to Clemson for a game. Greg will drive to Baton Rouge. And we always have the discussion. By the time, especially us in Birmingham, by the time you check in, switch planes in Atlanta, get there, would you have just been better off driving? Serious question. Are you at the point now where you would have been better off just driving and had made it
to
before?
Los Angeles.
I'm dead serious.
At
Los
this
Angeles.
point,
I get that, but he's been in the airport for 2 days.
He might be in Abilene by now.
No, it'd be further than that.
Midland.
We'd be cutting it close. What you have to factor in now is I still have a flight that is probably going to be in the neighborhood of 4.5, 5 hours. So when we add that in, and at this point, I'm estimated to get home, I think, around 11:45 a.m. Pacific. So there's a good chance that by then, yes, we could have been in, you would have been better off driving territory.
So what are we looking at? Mike Golick Jr., by the way, joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline. I saw that he's still in the Atlanta airport via Twitter, and I said, we got to try to get him on and just hear about, because we've seen all the TSA lines. They were outside. And if you've been to Hartsfield, that's a long ways away. It's a pretty big corridor when you walk in. I've seen long lines. I haven't seen them outside. And then other people did you, first off, did you have any idea that this plane crashed on the runway yesterday?
What?
Okay, I
think it slid off the runway. Crash is aggressive.
Let's just say this. It looks like it's in a 1998 rap video sitting on hydraulics, leaning to the right, and people are running from it on the tarmac. I will send this to you right away. Yes, I can't believe you. I was just curious if, like, the people in the airport know that this actually took place yesterday.
No, that has not made its way through the airport yet, and probably for good reason, although that would probably be, at this point, what I'd consider a morale boost. Like, at least we're not that plane. Like, hey, it's been bad in here, and I watched several people have a meltdown last night and almost get thrown out of the airport berating gate agents, but at least we're not that plane running around the tarmac. So that's a good dose of perspective. I appreciate you.
Yeah. I'll send you 2 videos of this, and I feel like, yes, you will actually have that perspective. So what would the time frame of actual delay from when your plane was supposed to take off be to where we are now?
So my plane was supposed to take off at 4:40 p.m. Eastern last night, and we are now, at this point, holding steady at a 9:30 a.m. departure. So that's where we're at right now.
That is, have you, like, tried TV shows, movie? What else have we done to pass the time?
I have got 2 episodes left in season 2 of Rings of Power, the Lord of the Rings prequel on Amazon Prime Video right now. So that's what's been holding steady. Some good hateable characters in that. Lots of good sci-fi stuff. If you're into it, it's been a blast.
Joffrey Baratheon making a comeback?
I tell you what, there's a character that is up there with Joffrey Baratheon right now. His name is Kemen, and he's the son of the usurper in the gifted elven land that the humans now run. The guy's an absolute monster. Thinks he's hot stuff because the guy who's his pseudo dad took power, and all of a sudden he can go and challenge the guy who's been the sea master there the entire time, who's a certified badass. Like, if you haven't watched this show, would love him. Gruff, tough, has the respect of all the people that have ever served under him. They've stripped him of his power, and he would still have any one of those guys would go to bat for this dude. He's the ultimate captain, the ultimate guy you want in a foxhole with him. And this young punk's been challenging him. And I know he's got to get what's coming to him, and I can't wait for it.
We always walk through the airport. Like I was talking about, I had flew out of Miami after the Orange Bowl and had an issue with my rental car. I had to run to the gate. It's the second time I've run in an airport. That's the one thing that you see and you say, man, I'm glad I'm not that person. And then it's the people sleeping in the airport that you say, glad I'm not that guy or that girl. How often have you been that person that you normally are glad that you are not in the airport this trip in Hartsfield?
I have been that for hours at this point now, because these people in the airport have seen me sleep in some pretty compromised positions. I tell you what, the underrated one of those, because I'm with you. I've had that moment where, hey, you got the comfy shoes on already and you tie them extra tight because you got to run from the E terminal in Charlotte all the way to the C or the B terminal, clear across the other side of the airport. Thank God I went to Orange Theory for that. Your shouts out to them. But no, this one was the smooth jazz that you hear playing over the intercom in Hartsfield-Jackson the entire time. There was a moment last night around 3 a.m. where I'm trying to sleep. Someone's having a mental breakdown over talking to the gate agent, and I just hear this smooth jazz interrupted by this statement from the mayor of Atlanta that said, "Welcome to Hartsfield-Jackson, the busiest and most efficient airport in the country." As I'm there at 3 a.m. on the ground and couldn't even get one of the throwaway blankets that they were giving out here. So that was definitely my version of that moment for this trip.
Have you considered like the neck pillow purchase or from the Hudson News? Has there been what's the craziest like Hudson News purchase that you've made or any other purchase in the airport?
I have resisted any material purpose right now. I was one of the lucky ones because you guys know this. The whole name of the game is just don't check anything. Like the people right now that I felt the worst for outside of the parents who had, young children or babies that were on the flight who were God's strongest soldiers on this entire trip were the people that checked bags because they were sitting here with their bags held hostage. So I had enough stuff to make like a rudimentary pillow out of this. I got a decently warm coat that I got on. So that's been blanket mode here. We've resisted the Hudson News, but I'm not going to lie. I'm looking at the McDonald's again this morning. And guys, when I hang up with you before this flight, I have a feeling we're going to do some damage.
And it is deserved, and you should. Well, man, we wish you the best. What is you mentioned you've seen a couple of meltdowns. Like, what is the wildest or most out of control back and forth that you have seen in this trip?
I mean, it was probably 2 a.m. because you know how it is. Like, you'd almost rather just hear the flights canceled than the incremental half-hour delays. And finally it happened. And one woman, I mean, she can't be more than 5'5", 5'6", staring up at the gate agent who, God bless the gate agent, just got there. Like, they switched duty. The person that had been there giving us the bad news the whole time sprinted out of there like an official after a game that had been poorly refereed, just getting the hell out of the stadium to safety. And so they tossed in the new guy, and he's over here sitting in the trenches taking grenades with no one to back him up here. And this little woman is just staring up. She stopped cold just short of putting her finger directly into this man's chest. And we're all just sitting here waiting, yelling World Star in the background, trying to see if the cops are going to come and throw her out. So that was probably at the height of it there. I was really proud. And I saw her this morning. Cooler heads prevailed. She's going to find her way back home. She didn't get thrown out of here, and I'm proud of her for finding a way through adversity.
Have you become friends with any of these people?
Hey,
Like maybe pen pals or anything?
The worst part about all this is I actually ended up making friends. The 2 closest people I got to in this entire thing, Ohio State fans. And I wanted to hate them coming off this weekend, guys. I'm still carrying some feelings of resentment based on the result, and they were awesome. Great guys. We sat there and talked for a little while. Even talked a little bit about the game, talked to them about the NFL playoff. I met a guy who was sitting in this terminal, was an Ohio State law school grad, who was from Mission Viejo, California, who grew up a Bills fan because of his parents. So this guy has the Bills in a deep postseason run, had his Ohio State Buckeyes just win the national championship. And on top of that all, again, he grew up in California, so he's a Dodgers fan. So if the Buffalo Bills pull this off, this guy is going to go through a swing of maybe the 4 greatest months of his entire sports watching life.
And he's giving out legal advice to people in Hartsfield, which, I mean, just quadruple down there. Yeah, it's
so generous.
Amazing. All right, we wish you the best. Is your dad still there with you?
No, Dad ended up making it out, I think, about 1 a.m. last night, so one of the lucky ones.
He just waved goodbye to you, like, best of luck, son.
He goes, you'll learn from this someday.
Yeah.
This will be good for you.
Exactly. He turned it into a father-son bonding moment and a learning opportunity. Good for him.
Yes.
Man, thanks for hopping on last minute. I feel like I hope we did a little bit to help pass some of the time. And I know people have seen a lot of the images, but go straight to your DMs and check out that plane on the tarmac yesterday. I couldn't believe it when I saw it. And I was just, it looks like a plane that like was derailed in Siberia. It's wild. They're running through the tarmac, snow everywhere. It's insane. But thanks for hopping on with us, Golic.
Absolutely. Can't wait to watch the video and then immediately board my plane. And
we give you the warm fuzzies.
Thanks, fellas.
Talk to you soon.
Later, dude.
Mike Golic Jr. joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline. Goodness gracious. And you complained about your drive home last week.
I had to go 40 for 153 miles.
But you were moving.
Doesn't matter. Didn't feel like it.
You weren't blanketless in Hartsfield overnight.
Who doesn't travel with a blanket?
I did like that he said the blue blankets that they hand out on Delta. Like it's everybody had one, but
yeah,
him.
It's like the same blanket they give to the person that like just gone through a trauma and is getting checked out by the meds in the back of an ambulance. Like
those fit around you.
I worry about those people that accept the blankets on planes.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
they still have them.
Those been? Oh yeah, absolutely.
I don't know. Since COVID, I feel like those went by the wayside.
No, they got them.
Had he gotten on the road at midnight after the championship game, he'd be 30 minutes from home right now. Had he driven.
Yeah,
but you have to stop and spend the night. I mean,
he'd be going straight through. You can have it. You guys, and your driving. I'm good to drive.
You are the driver here.
You literally drove
I'll drive
night.
10 hours.
That's your cutoff?
I can do 15 in an emergency and have thought about that.
What's your cutoff though, without any sort of travel issues? Like, did you say I'm driving that?
No, I think
you drive more than most people that do TV for games. Like,
that's true.
Yes. Much more.
That is accurate. Like, I don't mind it. 6 hours for TV is my cutoff. Will not go over. I just like the comforts of my own car. I like having my own car. Thanks to my friends at Bill Smith Buick GMC, I've been outfitted with a great ride for a very long time. I've taken the short drive up to Coleman. I've bought 3 vehicles from them. They've all been terrific. I'll buy my next vehicle from them. I'm not sure it's possible to have a better experience than you can have from Bill Smith Buick GMC. There's a reason why they're the GMC Dealer of the Year, they're the national champ. 4 times in a row, they've won the national championship of car dealerships because they can get you a 2025 right now at GMC Sierra. That's $11,000 off the sticker. It's ridiculous. I mean, it's brand new, just turned 2025. I mean, the calendar flipped the page 22 days ago, and they're marking things off nearly 20% off. Go get yourself one right now. But take the short time to Coleman. You go see Andy Cole and Jonathan Yeager and all the wonderful people up there at Bill Smith. And remember, you can always shop online, have it delivered right to your driveway at BillSmithBuickGMC.com. But I will say this, the driving is more convenient if you can do it in one calendar day. I'm not sure there is anything more demoralizing than having to stop mid-drive to let alone go to the bathroom, mind you, than to stop and actually sleep, wake up the next day and have to drive again. That's the absolute worst.
It's
you disagree?
I've only done that. I've done that very few times.
Whew.
And it's not fun. And for someone who grew up with relatives in Wisconsin and Pittsburgh, having made multiple 15-hour drives,
that's 15?
Well, Birmingham, Columbia, and then Columbia to either Pittsburgh or Watertown, Wisconsin. Not fun.
Wait, Columbia to Wisconsin?
Yes, I've done it.
From Birmingham.
Now, I will say, as a youngster,
I would think you'd go like 20 right up.
Uncle had the big, we went to meet up with family and then we all went together. So like you said,
like a caravan?
My uncle had that old, like the A-Team van. What do you call those? Caravan? What do you call that? The 80s vans. Back seat folds down.
I don't know those.
You guys know what I'm talking about, though. Not the Astro van. Like the full, no. Those things are back. 60s. Those things are back, by the way.
I've seen them.
Speaking of which, you can get one at Royal Buick GMC right now.
Can you?
You can. They got them in.
Heck yeah.
I think they're electric too.
Let's ride. Those things are fire.
That commercial came on the other day, and my 7-year-old said, "What's the big deal with that, Dad?" I was like, "Yeah, it's a long story.
You don't realize.
We've been getting into that.
Punch bug.
Not even going there. But yeah, they had the old conversion van, and the back seat would fold down, so it's like a giant mattress, and it had like the 4-inch TV screen in it, like built in. We thought we were living.
Yeah.
I mean, he was living the high life back then. That made it a little bit easier, but man, that's a haul. There's no easy way around it. Even when you have the little, you won't have this, Greg. John did. The plastic piece of the cardboard with the green and red sleeve over it, like railroad crossing, and you mark it off.
I had that.
You had that?
Why would you make me think I wouldn't have that?
I thought that was like a 80s kid thing.
No. That was a 90s kid thing. No, it's almost like a bingo board, but it was for, and ours wasn't like a cross. It was like a red thing that you put over.
The red sleeve you put over the top.
Red sleeve you put over, and punch bug.
What else is on there? Like
Woody.
Train track, I know was on there.
Like the old Grand Wagoneer, like if you saw Woody, that was
yours was cars. No, ours wasn't cars. I think ours were like landmarks. Like if you saw a stop sign.
Yeah, no, like various signs. Like we had those too. Like there were also cars on there though too.
Oh, we didn't have the cars. No.
Yeah. Well, it was basically like one of those wagons. Like anytime you saw one of those weird wagons, it could be like a Mercedes or a Woody. Like it counted. So
got it.
Woody, got it.
There it is.
Punch bug, got it.
Yeah, that only lasted so long. Alphabet game, only so long.
Those things were fire. We need to bring those back. All these kids.
I think somebody tried to remake them not long ago. I saw them at some hipster toy store. They try to do it again.
Oh, in Homewood?
Nope. Mountain Brook, actually.
No. They don't have those there.
Yep. Right over there by
probably right over there where they celebrate Krampus in Homewood. The Krampus store.
Don't have that either. All right, we'll be back with more right after this. Wednesday, January 22nd, Jocks 94.5. I was trying to find this game online. I can't find it. Where you slid the panels across.
Yeah.
Need to go back to that hipster toy store and maybe pick one up.
It was like bingo board, no?
It was. And I was trying to find the things that were actually on it that here we go. Real life travel bingo. May have found it.
Boom.
But this is this not the travel one? This is great. Here are this is definitely not the one that we have, but this is actually creative. This is good. Here are the panels that the updated version has for 10-year-olds and more. There's a stupid question panel. There's an unfunny joke panel.
Yeah.
Argument where to eat. Crying. Bathroom emergency.
Okay.
Weird smell. Curse word. Senior moment. Insincere apology. Kid being punched. Singing off key. Kids arguing. Free square in the middle is bored to death. Lame music choice. Lame weather comment. Parents arguing. Traffic law broken. We are lost moment. Someone car sick. Boy, we would hit that one. My ride.
That's a lock.
Someone asking how much longer. A cell phone usage. Parent threatens kid. Long and pointless story. So I don't think that's the
How
one that
about
we
the kids
had.
know what a senior moment is?
Yeah, I think that was actually that game for grown-ups now.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Okay, yeah.
But yeah, it did have the little panels the same way that we had them back in the day. The auto bingo. You were right, Greg. That's what it was called back in the day.
Yeah.
This is actually a photograph of an old one. Bus, barn, speed sign, wagon, public phone, yield sign, do not enter sign, satellite dish. What if they count the new ones that like lay down on top of the cars?
Still a satellite
Fire
dish.
truck, motorcycle, power line, school, silo, gas pump, no left turn, flagpole, water tower, bicycle,
No left turn.
haystack, tractor. Well, I tell you what, if they're leaving our neck of the woods, you knock these out quick.
Oh, yeah.
Police car, lake, travel trailer. I feel like that's easy.
Yeah.
There were 3 versions, by the way: interstate highway bingo, auto bingo, and then auto bingo 2. Billboard, mailbox. You'd be done with these in 30 minutes.
Maybe that's for like 3-year-olds.
Is this like the around town? Not like a interstate. All right. We will move away from the auto bingo and the Hartsfield travel woes. What's your limit? What would your limit be on just leaving the airport and saying, I will find another way? I'm done with this.
I'd probably have to be there a full day.
He's moving in on that.
Yeah. Full day at the airport, no moving.
Have you spent the night at the airport?
I have.
I have once. In Mobile.
Oh,
On a bench.
really?
That's a long story.
Good airport.
Small airport.
Very small. Smaller the better, in my opinion. Like, I don't really need to be in DFW where I can go
Please
eat
no.
38 different options.
I feel like Charlotte would be the worst to be stranded in.
Oh, you can sit in a rocking chair.
We should have, but
Rarely are there open rocking chairs, though.
America's friendliest airport.
Says who?
Friendly.
Surely
people.
they don't market it that way.
Super friendly.
No.
Don't
You
be mad
can't
at me.
have the friendliest airport in America when you're making everyone mad constantly.
No, come on.
That can't be real.
No.
It's not a thing.
Yes.
The top 3 is a thing. We'll get to it next on Mac and Cube in the morning. Welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Appreciate you guys tuning in. We will move on from the Hartsfield horror stories. Move on from the travel bingo talk and get to what's really important here on the show each and every day, and that's our top three. Sometimes sports, not always. Damian, what's on tap for our top three today?
All right, guys, as we know, on January 22nd, it's, believe it or not, come in from the cold day.
Nobody knew that.
From the what?
Not a
From the
single person.
cold.
No one knew that.
Makes sense.
Is there a get out in the cold day?
I hope not. I think that might be celebrated in the early part of January. Now that we're towards the end of it, it's time to come on in.
Just get inside.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, National Get Inside Day.
You've had your fun. Now come on.
Yeah, come on. Come on inside.
My wife brought up a good point yesterday. We were showing the kids some of the – it's on right now. The snow at the beach. Like they've got Gulf Shores on the screen right now. It's historic snow. She said, can you imagine how horrible it is with kids and whatnot bringing sand in? Now you got snow with the sand. And what a mess that would have been.
Yeah, we would have avoided the beach.
You got to go see it, though, right? You get 4 or 6 inches of snow on the beach. Like, you're never going to see that again, I don't feel like.
It's definitely weird.
Record snow, first time since 1876. How do we know that they had that right? How did the 1800s meteorologists actually know how much snowfall there was?
Wikipedia.
Sure. Yeah.
Snow on the Beach. That's a Taylor Swift song.
Did not know that either.
Yes, sir.
That's what you get in the top three.
It's off the Midnight's album. You should check it out. Got
Oh,
Lana Del
such
Rey.
a good song.
Lana Del Rey, she's in it. She's also going to be on the Weeknd's album coming out next
I'll
weekend.
try to grab the tape on that.
She should. Ain't that
Your
bad.
team loses in the divisional round. All of a sudden, you just out here grasping.
Wait a second. They're trying to tell me it's 10. They're trying to tell me it's 10 degrees outside right now?
It feels like it.
It feels like
It's 12
less
when
than
I
that.
woke up this morning, so that's not surprising.
It was cold, but 10? I didn't feel that cold.
It wasn't windy.
I would not have said
Uh-oh.
10,
No, I don't feel like it's 10.
but it's not warm.
I mean, it's not Gargamel, North Dakota, whatever we said yesterday.
They canceling school?
Oh,
Feels like minus
It was
62.
Olga Karolenko.
They
Same thing.
canceling school today?
Should.
just because it's cold. No snow, just cold.
Just cold.
They built different.
That would be a southern thing to do for real.
We had an e-learning yesterday, e-learning day. And let me just tell you.
Did they learn?
Yeah.
What'd they learn? School of Hard Knocks?
Pop a shot, skee ball,
There we go.
all of them. We crushed Dave & Buster's in the e-learning.
I mean, that takes geometry. It's all about angles.
We did the Giant Fruit Ninja,
You
we did
went to-
Mario Kart.
Exactly.
You went to Dave & Buster's?
I just said a couple segments ago, Greg, we were
I know.
searching for an indoor activity.
I understand
and
that.
the only thing that I could come up with was Dave & Buster's after 3 failed trampoline park attempts.
I get the trampoline park attempts. I get all that, but I have not been to the Dave & Buster's here. Is it of quality?
Yes.
Something
Yeah,
that's
no,
worth
it's fine.
revisiting?
Yeah,
It
it's
is,
fine.
yeah.
I was a little concerned when we walked in at 1:30 and there were like 4 people posted up at the bar, and they were the only people there.
It's a cold day.
We got the games to
E-learning.
ourselves. That's good.
No, yeah.
You want to
But,
learn something, go sit at the bar next to those guys.
They'll probably have a lot to say. A lot to say. And then, like I said, $75 in tickets, stuffed animal, plastic gold dog tag chain is what we left with. And on top of that, had to negotiate the 4-year-old out of getting anything. So the tickets could be split between those two. Had to give him something at home
Ooh.
because he wanted a lot of things in there. Have you ever considered the stupidity of some of the things that they do have in there?
Yes.
Not the low end items, the
Yeah.
high end items. Like they had a liquor glassware set, like the glass thing that you put it in with the 2 side glasses.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like 220,000 tickets. Let me
220.
just say, I busted my ass to get 1,500. Like I had to go throw the footballs.
Yeah.
I had to play skee ball. And then found out from our previous trip, which was over a year ago, that I had a couple chips, I think they call it now. Like what are we
Yeah.
in Vegas?
Yeah, it is. It's chips.
And
or
I
whatever.
had to do the giant spin wheel. And I mean, it was, you talk about cutting it close. It was no whammies, stop. We had to get a couple 150 rounds on that, thankfully, to get enough tickets to get it. Because when you let the 4-year-old throw the footballs while he's standing on the machine where the balls come out, he doesn't get many through the holes.
If you extrapolate out what you spent
I don't want to
for
know.
1,500,
I don't. No, don't do that. You can't do that. You know why, John? Because the joy on my kid's face is priceless. That's what I'm gonna tell myself.
No, absolutely. But to get
The germs we left with, priceless.
Yes.
no, to get the liquor set.
Can't find that anywhere else.
Oh, the liquor
Yeah,
set.
to get the liquor set, you would have ended up spending $11,000.
I think they had like a PS5 for like 1 million tickets.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They had like autographed jerseys for 700,000 tickets. I'm like, what are people living up here?
I guess 4 of them were. They were at the bar.
You better hire the guy that did the Apple email hacks to get in there and like hack you some chips into your phone.
That sounds like a good plan. What could go wrong there?
Hey, the first time though, we were 10 tickets short of the 2 things we wanted. I'm like, come on, guy.
Grind.
We're the only people playing
don't do
games
it.
here. Like, can you?
No.
Negotiation. That's
He's like,
learning.
what you can do is you can buy some more chips and you can go out there and you can earn the tickets.
Yes.
And I was like, really? You need to go hang out with the airport valet folks.
I like that.
I guess you want it bad enough.
No
There's
freebies
no
here.
negotiating. Not a damn ticket to be
No freebies
negotiated
here.
in that thing. Thanks, guy.
The thing that amazes me about that place is I remember as a kid, like I wanted to get an XFL football. I was like 11 years old. One of the black ones, you know, the black with the
Yeah.
red on the outside. Like
They were
I wanted,
sweet.
they were so sweet. I wanted an XFL football, and I spent the entire summer. We used to go to Dave & Buster's probably 3-4 times.
Not a
summer.
day. The whole offseason. you
No,
spent.
whole summer. We probably
Whole
went 3 or 4
summer.
times. Dave & Buster's found in Dallas. Like ours was a good one. The whole summer it felt like working towards getting that XFL football and got it, and it was like this thing is no different than my normal football.
It's a
You don't
football.
say.
Yeah, I thought it would have been like some. I mean, I thought it would have been. I have 10 of these. This is no different.
You
Just
know what? You
black.
put in that work, though. You put in
So
that
mad.
work, and that's what counts.
It's the
So
grind.
mad.
Oh, man. Now, the top 3 is going to be dealing with the NFL championship weekend, excluding quarterbacks. Who are the top 3 most important players for the weekend?
I don't care. I'm going to give you my top 3 games from Dave & Buster's yesterday.
Yes.
The football game through the holes is incredible.
a good one.
I could play that for 11 hours straight.
Your arm sore?
No, not at all.
Yeah, it is.
He wasn't
We
grinding.
had we
He
had
just doesn't want to admit
He
it.
wasn't grinding
we
enough.
had some big wins on the ring toss game,
There we go.
and also that actually worked because 7 and 9-year-old could be on one side, me and 4-year-old on the other side. And you can kind of work together because it's more of a speed based game. I mean, you're not throwing one at a time and making them, so it's just get them out there as quick as you can. Pop a shot, tough to manage with a 4-year-old that can't really get it there. That wasn't
hard?
great. So they have this. You need to take Vince to do this one. They have this new football game, but it's like a training game. I'll show you guys the videos in the break. And so like you run through the tires and then you jump over one of the like running back pads that they do their little Z thing that's useless in. So you run and then you jump. You go to the next level and there's like a mascot going back and forth. You have to avoid him. Third level, there's mascots and like ambulances going back and forth. So you have to avoid those. Basically, it's straight line Frogger is basically what it is.
Perfect.
But on a football field, running through the hoops and jumping.
Love that.
9-year-old crushed it. 4-year-old, this is so good. He kept running, but he was moving forward. So he wasn't staying on the pad. So he was actually moving. I was
moving.
like, hey, you got to stay here. Because he was getting mad that it wasn't going. The guy was just standing still and he's running. I was like, we'll get it. We'll get there.
Hey.
Someday.
That was a new one. I didn't know that one existed. And then bottom 3, number 1, easily the giant claw game. And when I say giant claw,
The
I mean
claw game.
this is construction.
It's the
Grade.
worst.
It's like a crane.
And they have basically what looks like the triangles that hold pool. You know, your pool balls when you're going to break the balls in the pool.
Yeah.
And they have points on or tickets on them. It's like 250 tickets, 500 tickets, 10 million tickets.
Oh, sure.
And it's all they want to play. It's all they want to play. And I pulled them aside. I said, guys, have you seen a win in one of these games?
Right.
Doesn't matter.
Tell me when the win was.
Don't need it.
It's coming, Dad.
What do you mean a win? I was like,
I'm
who has
due.
gotten one?
I'm due.
And not just in this
That's
one,
it.
in the small one in the pizza place that we go to, the one at the mall that you've seen before. Give me a win in one of these. And they've
Dude.
never seen it.
I ain't seen
It hadn't
one.
happened.
The one that we do at the pizza place is $1 per play.
And you're not getting anything.
No. Heck no.
Actually,
$1 per.
The engineer who came up with that claw that specifically holds it until it gets to the top and then quote fingers accidentally lets go of it.
Well, because
That guy needs a raise. That guy needs a raise.
The thing at the top is absolutely ridiculous.
It slams
it's
it,
like,
yeah.
It's like, all right, got
So
it.
swinging side to side and like there goes the elephant, stuffed elephant. And you're just like, nope, didn't get it again.
Imagine that.
Why do they want to play that? I don't know. But they keep wanting to go back to it more and more and more.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
To answer the question properly, Saquon Barkley,
Oh,
Terry McLaughlin,
nobody's worried
McLaurin,
about
and
that.
Damar Hamlin.
We
I'll
got
be
Kirk
nice.
Morrison coming up
You
to
say
talk
Damar
NFL
Hamlin?
playoffs.
Yeah. He's led the team in
Had a
tackles
fumble
so
return
far.
last week.
He
Yeah.
did.
Has most sacks so far in this postseason. Yeah. He'll probably be all over
Like
the
Chris
field.
Jones?
I ruined that deal too because I try to tell my 7-year-old that story. So every time he makes a play, my 7-year-old says, "Daddy, is that the one that died?"
Oh boy.
Yes, but we don't have to say it that way.
Well,
Like let's spin that into a positive
That's
story.
what
Like, it's not.
happened.
Yeah,
Right?
it is. Yeah. Hour number 2 underway. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. We might actually talk sports this hour. You want to go that direction?
I think that's not a terrible segue into where we need to go.
Not a bad
I'm
idea.
fine talking Dave and Buster's game still. I took Vince to Dave and Buster's next to the in Glendale, Arizona last year when we went out there for the Final Four. That was our Friday night activity.
I bet it worked.
It was ripping too.
Yeah, no, it's fun.
It was super fun.
It's there's a lot to do, and hey, you learn how to set goals and try to accomplish those things. So, but we're going to go to the Buyers Right hotline now. Damian tried to get us into the NFL playoffs. Have a discussion about that. Kirk Morrison, former NFL linebacker, calls college football games now. Kirk, before we get to the NFL, what were your thoughts on the national championship game? Just how Ohio State was not only able to win that one, but able to make the playoff run that they did after going down to the Michigan Wolverines.
I mean, the best roster money can buy, right, Cole? I mean, I think we all season long we expected them to be in the college football playoff, one of the probably top seeds. but that loss to Michigan, that loss to Oregon, and we kind of like said, wait, what? But then you realize the depth on that roster and in their players, the chemistry, how they develop, and then you saw the final product on Monday night, and it's like, was I supposed to be surprised? I'm like, no, Quinshon Junkins. I mean, I think the biggest surprise for all of us, honestly, was it just Will Howard. We saw him at Kansas State, and I'm like, okay, let's see. And Will Howard was phenomenal. So I think I was more surprised at how the quarterback played throughout the big games throughout the season. But I think that roster, we knew that they were national championship ready.
What do you make of Notre Dame quickly, though, before we get to the NFL?
Yeah.
Just thoughts on where they can go from here and what kind of season they had.
Again, they got to go find a quarterback, right? It was like every single year. That's what it's going to be like for Notre Dame or some of these big programs. But I thought Marcus Freeman's leadership kind of stood out. I love the way the defense played, especially in the playoffs. But, Jeremiah Love is going to be one of those guys who, a Heisman Trophy candidate next year. Can he get a quarterback that can match him in the production that he's had? But Notre Dame is going to be a place that guys want to go in the transfer portal. You saw it this year, and I think it'll be the same thing next year. But I like the leadership and the trajectory that Marcus Freeman has that program. I never would have thought that Notre Dame is like, okay, the place now. But I feel like they put themselves in a position that it's a highly sought-after destination.
Absolutely. Let's roll. Kirk Morrison joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline. Covers NFL, does radio for NFL, obviously does TV for college football. So NFL playoffs coming up this weekend. And Kansas City Chiefs, we've been here before. We've seen this story before. Is it just more of the same against this Buffalo Bills football team at home for the Chiefs?
I think so. I'll be there on Sunday in Kansas City. And I think I go back to the first time that Mahomes was in the conference championship game versus Tom Brady. And the same plays that the Patriots and Tom Brady had, like those moments, right? We saw whether it was a hit on Mahomes or an offsides penalty or a defensive pass interference. Those plays that would go toward the Patriots. We always say, like, how could the Patriots? They're cheating for the Patriots. I'm like, I see those plays happening more for Kansas City. And I'm not just talking about officiating. I'm just saying that those types of plays are leaning more towards the Kansas City Chiefs. And those are the plays that can the Buffalo Bills overcome, right? Like those 50-50 plays. Can the Buffalo Bills overcome those? Can Josh Allen, if they miss a holding call, are they able to move on to the next play? Can they move on to the next play? If they're not able to do that, then it is Kansas City going to the Super Bowl, trying to win 3 in a row. That's the big part this weekend. I'm excited. There's 2 high-level quarterbacks doing what they do. That's the storyline, but I can't wait to see how this all plays out.
What do you make of the Bills' performance last weekend? It was dominant for a while, and then in the second half, things kind of went sideways. Bills like a team that they can potentially do it. I know Kansas City stands in their way, but pretty fortuitous to get out of there with the win this past weekend. What can they do differently this time around against the Chiefs to get the win?
I know. Oh, man, great. It's a tough one. It really is, because that was like a lot of people thought last week may have been the AFC Championship game because of this Lamar and Josh and just both teams, the Bills, Ravens. But now you're actually in the conference championship game. And I think what you're saying for the most part is, can Buffalo consistently play their game? Like seeing the growth of Josh Allen. Like I remember at the end of the game on like the third down, Josh Allen looked like he wanted to pitch the football and yet he held it. Like, can you not have the mistakes that I feel like teams hurt themselves in trying to say, we got to do more, right? We got to do more. The one thing I remember like kind of always in my mind, I don't know why this is in my mind, Greg, but you remember the Rose Bowl in 2006 and like, was that USC and Texas and like Reggie Bush is lateraling the football and USC is doing so many things. Like, you don't need to do all that. Just play your game. Like things are going to happen. Execute down the stretch. Make them also execute. Make Travis Kelce have to make the plays. Like Mark Andrews, tight end last week for Baltimore, fumbles the football, doesn't catch the 2-point conversion, and had an earlier drop. Like, to me, if I'm Sean McDermott, head coach of the Bills, let's just execute, fellas. Don't worry about nothing else. Don't try to be superhuman. Just execute, be who we are, and that should be good enough. Try not to be superhuman and make some things happen that just aren't there.
Kirk Morrison joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline talking NFL playoffs. You will be at Arrowhead on the other side of the NFL playoffs. The surprise Washington Commanders just continue to find ways to get it done. And it's kind of like we talked about Notre Dame heading into the national championship game. Just that it factor, that figure out a way, that somehow, some way football team that just does it. Now, there's obviously a lot more playmaking ability with the Commanders and Jaden Daniels and how special he's been with over 3,500 passing yards this year. But the Eagles can get you in so many different ways with the weapons on the perimeter, Saquon, quality offensive line. What has to give from Philadelphia for Washington to be able to pull this one out and go to the Super Bowl?
Wow, I think it's mistakes. To me, for Washington, it's not giving up the big play. I cover the Rams, and basically you can sum up the Rams last week in their loss to the Eagles on 3 plays, 3 explosives, a 44-yard run from Jalen Hurts for a touchdown, a 62-yard run from Saquon Barkley for a touchdown, and a 78-yard touchdown from Saquon Barkley. Like that, it was 3 plays. And if I'm Dan Quinn, I'm telling my guys, make them earn it. Do not give them the explosive. Like, we have to tackle. We have to be in our gaps. And more importantly, I think Greg may love this one too. You may love this one as well, Cole. 3rd down runs. Like, those explosives came to 3rd down. Like, the Rams were playing for a pass, and yet I give Kellen Moore credit. They went out and they ran the football on 3rd down, and that's how they created those explosive plays. And so this is time for Dan Quinn and the Commanders. If they're able to limit those explosives and let Jaden Daniels come down to the 4th quarter and put the game in his hands, it's a tall task for a rookie on the road. But I like their chances because of their leadership on defense and their leadership on offense. They won't have Cosme at guard, so that's a big thing. He's out with an ACL, but I just really like their chances on their 3rd time playing against the Eagles. That's a lot of confidence for them that they've got honestly a big-time shot at winning this thing.
I was kind of surprised to see the Lions play as poorly as they did. Was that more about the Lions, or was that more about what the Commanders are capable of?
Oh, man, I think it was a lot about what the Commanders are capable of because we've seen Jaden Daniels, right, in college, and then he's come to the NFL, and to me, he's still young, but he's making the plays that are needed. I love how he's protecting himself. But then I look on the Detroit side, and it was like, how are they doing this with so many injuries on defense? And yet it's like, man, they're trying, they're hoping, and they just couldn't get it done defensively. But more importantly, I love Jared Goff. I really do, man. He's a Northern California guy like myself. But in his time with the Rams and covering the Rams, there were games where Jared Goff has those types of games where he turns the ball over, whether there's an interception, whether it's the fumbles lost, and you're saying, like, dude, you cannot have those types of games. And Sean McVay said, I'm done with this, and you see what happens. Those types of games with Jared Goff really ultimately I thought is what sabotaged the Detroit Lions and allowed Washington to have confidence to go out there and win the game. So that's the tough part. I feel like Detroit did play their best game, but their quarterback just turned the ball over way too many times, Greg. It was too much for me to handle.
We appreciate the time, Kirk. Always great catching up with you. Love talking football with you, man. Enjoy it this weekend. That's going to be a crazy scene there in Kansas City, and we'll have you back soon.
Oh, man. Hey, appreciate what you guys do. I'm your biggest fans, man. Love watching you guys all season long, get a little bit of a break, and can't wait to talk to Greg a little bit later on, man. He was putting so many rules analysts in a body bag this year. It was amazing. Greg, amazing. I love pushing back on rules analysts. I'm like, no, that's not what happened there, buddy. But yeah, we'll talk
They
about
don't have to be right. They don't have to bat at that. We don't have people calling to complain about the officials all the time, and we just take the rules analyst opinion for it like it's the word of God. It's not. So we're in good shape. I appreciate you, man.
No, man, love you guys, man. You guys be well, man.
Thanks
Talk
a lot.
to you soon.
There you go. Kirk Morrison joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline, talking some NFL playoffs. It's just difficult. Josh Allen's been amazing this year, and on the road, always going to be tough in the NFL. But it's just so hard. We're at that point with Kansas City, Greg, where even if different portions of the team are not what they were, or certain spots look a little bit different, it's tough to bet against Mahomes in this spot, man.
It is, but I will. They're not as good. They're just not. The defense is fantastic. The offense is lacking something. I don't know what it is. It has nothing to do with Mahomes. Mahomes is the best. It's lacking something. It's like pulling teeth sometimes. I don't know why. It's just a hard watch. So I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl. Of the 4 teams remaining, I wouldn't pick the Commanders over them, but I might pick the other 2. I just think right now there's just something missing there.
Does it help or does it change your mind a little bit with how Kelsey showed up last week, yards after catch specifically, and just him finally, not that he hasn't been good at all this year, but last week kind of really, that was the guy. Like that was the dude in the playoffs that just nobody has an answer for. That's the guy that we expect to see almost weekly. Yeah,
I think that Kelsey is a very reliable target if you want to zone him up. I think his days of beating good man coverage are behind him. But if you want to get some zone looks for him and get some catch and run stuff for him on some misdirection screen stuff, he can still do all that. But he's not the same player he once was, but he can give you a good performance every now and again.
Yeah. All right. So obviously Championship Sunday coming up this weekend. Commanders, Eagles, 2:00 on Fox for the NFC Championship, 5:30 on CBS, Bills, Chiefs from Arrowhead for the AFC Championship. How impressed have you been with Jaden Daniels this year?
Good.
I kind of wonder why people didn't see it and why people kind of questioned it. If this would have been off of his first year at Arizona State, I would have said, yeah, fine. I get it. I understand. But how he managed things and handled himself that last year at LSU, I don't know how people could have said, will this translate? There just weren't many parts of it, Greg, that I saw that I didn't feel like it would carry over.
I think that there are aspects of his game that would be concerning. How upright of a runner he is, how often he relies on his legs, how often he escapes the pocket horizontally. But then you watch just the accuracy from the pocket. It was fantastic. So I'm having a hard time understanding why people didn't think he'd be successful. Now, to be playing in a conference championship game year 1, that I don't think anyone could have forecasted that, but I thought he'd be a good pro. I just thought there is a possibility that he could get banged up with how he ran. And he's been smart with that this year, I feel like.
Absolutely. All right, so a lot more time to divulge and discuss and break down the NFL playoffs this weekend. College football also something that we want to get back to. We'll discuss a little bit more of the national championship game when we come back. Before we do that, tell you about Game Day Men's Health. Told you about it yesterday. If you are feeling like your testosterone might be an issue, you lack energy, you're getting poor sleep, you feel on edge, all those could be the effects of low testosterone. All those could be issues that are happening because of that. And here's what you can do right now at Game Day Men's Health. Go to GameDayMen'sHealth.com, schedule that appointment, and you're going to get a free PSA test, free testosterone test right out of the gate. They're going to get a baseline of your health, kind of where it is, what it is, and then be able to go back and say, this is what we can do for you. This is how it can happen. And this is how we can help you. These are the programs that we have at Game Day Men's Health, and they're going to look for different ways to be able to help you there. Weight loss programs also available at Game Day Men's Health. So they're going to be able to help you like that. A lot of different things that they have for you there. Listen, it's low stress environment. They're not going to try to push you into different things. Not going to try to tell you, we have to do this, we have to do that. They're going to leave it up to you. Locker room feel there at Game Day Men's Health. Great people, great selections. Mention Cube, save 10% on anything they do when you walk in the door at Game Day Men's Health. Go to GameDayMen'sHealth.com today and schedule that free appointment. We are back to talk more national championship game and the fallout from it. Want to begin a little bit of discussion at some point today on top 5 players, top 5 teams heading into next season. We'll have time to do that. We'll start it right after this on Mac and Cube in the morning. Looking back at the national championship game, MVP of not just the national championship game, Greg, but of the college football playoff. I think some people look at it and say, oh, it'd be easy to go this direction or it'd be easy to go that direction. I'm intrigued to hear from you. If you were to select an MVP for that entire tournament, who would it be? You can join us on the Buyers Right Hotline, 800-239-9569, 800-239-WJOX. Also, you can tweet into the show at Mac and Cube. Watch live on YouTube, search Jocks945. But if you win an MVP of the entire playoff, who would that be for you?
Gosh, that's a good question. Jeremiah Smith probably had to be number one. With
I think
how
that's
he
where
played.
most people would go right out of the gate.
Yeah, 3 out of the 4 games, he was completely dominant. So he'd probably be number one, but I wouldn't want to go that direction personally, but he'd probably have to be number one at this point.
It'd be hard not to with, I mean, specifically the 3rd and 11 catch, which is, just massive. The point in the game in which that was to be able to, and it's not like it was just some, acrobatic, ridiculous catch. It's just,
right.
He was open. It was one-on-one and Will Howard made a good throw. I might have to go Will Howard though. And you and I have talked about him kind of not getting enough credit and just managing things, operating the offense, maybe the level of difficulty on a large number of the throws, not super high. But how many big mistakes did he make? I mean, how many times?
Not many.
I can't think of a massive mistake that he made. I don't even know like what that would be. So I think from that perspective, you look at it and say, Will Howard had a ton of responsibility in directing the traffic for Ohio State to be able to head down that road to a national title.
Right. I think Will Howard would be right in the mix. I don't think he's getting anywhere near enough credit. I know he didn't have 5 stars in recruiting, so people don't think he's good, but he's really good as a college player. He might not be the first overall pick, but you can still be really good as a college player. I know people don't want to acknowledge that because you're defined by how good you are based exclusively off of how many stars you had in recruiting and where you get drafted. That's not the way I evaluate things. I didn't need to win an NFL game on Monday night. I needed to win a college football game, and he played his tail off. And each of the 3 games before that, he played pretty well too. Because I don't think he made a lot of big mistakes in the tournament. I'd have to go back and look, but off the top of my head, I don't recall any that were egregious or big game-altering mistakes.
No. Also, could you potentially look at a Jack Sawyer MVP? I mean, obviously the strip sack, return fumble.
In the game the other night.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't obviously.
You're going to have a hard time finding a defensive end that's going to ever get an MVP vote for me.
Caleb Downs.
No.
Not MVP.
No. Good, a phenomenal player.
So for you, it would really be down to 2 players.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
if you want to go with someone else that had played great, that didn't win the national championship, but in the games that they were there, they were fantastic. I thought Leonard Moore had a heck of a postseason, the corner for Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he didn't really get torched at all in the game the other night. I think you can make a case that, gosh, there's not really anyone on Notre Dame. It's not any one individual.
If Jeremiah Love wouldn't have gotten hurt, he'd have probably been on his way.
Yeah,
potentially
but
do
they're
that.
just not a team that's built off of
Right.
just one individual. That's just not how they operate. So, gosh, I'm trying to think of someone off Texas. No. Someone off Penn State. No.
Aller didn't put up massive numbers.
No.
I mean, maybe Singleton.
Singleton had a good run, but I mean that drop in the flat, people are going to be bothered by, even though I thought it was a terrible throw. I mean,
There's only one game, and Scottaboo deserves some discussion.
yeah, I mean he gave his team a chance, but I don't think
Tough
he
to
had,
do with one game.
Not for
the
I
whole
don't
thing.
think you can do that.
Yeah, believe me, I'm sure there's plenty. If you want to go one game performances, what are the PFF grades? Who graded the
I'll have
highest?
to go see. I'll check the tape on that.
Look at that for me,
have
will
that
ya?
right now.
If you can find that, that'd be great. There was a handful of really good performances in the playoff, though, that were made on the defensive side. To me, Jack Sawyer will get all the love because he had the one biggest play from a defense standpoint. But was he the best? No.
It was a massive play.
Massive.
Uh,
He won a national championship.
and some people feel like that's enough to label somebody MVP of a certain game or a certain tournament or a certain season. That's where they'll put it, and that'll be enough for them. The Jeremiah Love thing, though, I mean, he had 1 catch for 3 yards against Texas.
Correct.
7 for 187, 2 touchdowns, 5 for 88 in the other 2. I mean, so you're still
5 stars, though.
13 catches.
290.
It's not bad.
No, pretty good.
3 touchdowns as well. Will Howard, 839 yards, 6 touchdowns, 1 interception, 69 rush attempts. I think it's got to be Will Howard.
It has to be. I mean, his legs, if nothing else, made the difference. I would love to know how many 3rd down conversions he had with his legs in the postseason.
A large number.
A bunch. I don't know for sure, but I'd be willing to go as far as to bet that he had. She said 69 rush attempts.
The rush attempts in the postseason for Will
69,
Howard.
I
That was
thought.
yards, 61 rushing yards for Will Howard in the postseason.
Really? He had 58 in the Natty.
Well, he was minus a few in the game against Texas. So he went rushing game log. He went, 5 for -3 against Oregon, 7 for 4 against Texas, 16 for 57 against Notre Dame.
Yeah. I would have thought it was a little better than that, but that's all right. I mean, the sack yardage, I just hate the sack yardage factors in, but it does. So I think his legs, though, I mean, I bet you have the 69 attempts. He probably had 10 first down or 61 rushing yards or whatever. He probably had 8 to 10 first down carries. Probably had 5 in the national championship game by itself.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty good starting point.
There's no doubt. I mean, I think you look at that and you say, for me, it's got to be Will Howard. I go back to, I asked the question.
But he only had 3 stars, dude.
What's the biggest mistake he made in that postseason?
He had 1 interception against Texas. That was bad. That was a bad throw.
And that's it. I know he got sacked a couple of times, once or twice against Texas, once against, I'm trying to go back and think of the Notre Dame got him like once, maybe twice, but they weren't bad sacks. I didn't think. Just pocket kind of collapsed. on him and
No,
he just
I
kinda
think
gave in.
I think he might have got twice, but one of them was like a 2-yard loss when it could have been a disaster because they covered up a screen really well.
So for me, that's it. John, do you have an MVP of the college football playoff, the entire playoff that you would go with?
I think I go Will Howard.
I think it's fairly easy for me. That's the direction that I would go.
I got no problem with that. I'm just a little fed up with how many people continue to discredit how good Will Howard was. Like, why can't you just get over it? The guy was good.
Great.
If you were critical of him throughout the season, that's fine. Like, you don't have to maintain your level of criticism. The guy flipped the corner. He turned the page. He ended up playing great down the stretch and ended up being a terrific addition to Ohio State. You don't have to continue on with this narrative because you said Ohio State made a huge mistake in the offseason because they just took a guy that was going to be the quote backup at Kansas State. Like, you need to get over that. Like, seriously, I'm over. The amount of people listening to a bunch of stuff yesterday that are continuing to bang the drum like, oh, well, Will Howard, he played well, but he's just not a great player. Like, he's still a liability. Like, what? Stop. Like, get over
Liability.
yourself.
Come on.
Like, get over yourself.
Nobody really believes that. Liability?
Dude, somebody yesterday said he was the 10th best player on Ohio State's offense.
No. We talked about that yesterday. We drafted him here on the show, and it's not even close.
I know. I can't get over it, though. I still can't get over it. Like, that bothers me that much that you are that hung up on your preseason evaluation of him. It's the only way you can make that justification is how you evaluated him in the preseason and how critical of him you probably were after the Michigan game, that you can't let that go.
Yeah,
So-
insane.
Or that you work for a recruiting company and you continue to bang the drum on that.
There you go. All right, we'll talk more national championship game and then what follows after it. I do want to talk about some of the top players coming back next year. Is it Jeremiah Smith and then everybody else when you're talking about the best players returning in college football next year? And think about this one. Where would Jeremiah Smith be drafted this year? We'll discuss that next on Mac and Cube in the morning. Talking about the path that Ohio State had to a national championship, what did it take? What did it consist of? Andrea Edelson has a great article up at ESPN.com now of how this thing sort of morphed and took place and how Ohio State was able to pull this off. And it was contributions from freshmen, contributions from veterans, different players stepping up that maybe hadn't consistently throughout the course of the year. Andrea, my consistent question has just been, how did the consistency turn on after that Michigan game? We had seen the D-line flash. We had seen Jeremiah Smith flash, the running backs, Caleb Downs, but it didn't all seem to come together at many points during the regular season. What would you point to as to the biggest how and why it all got on the same page for that playoff run?
Well, the Ohio State players and Ryan Day have been really outspoken throughout the course of the playoffs about a team meeting that they had after the Michigan game. It was the players and it was Ryan Day only. And hard words were said, hard emotions were shared. There was screaming, there was finger pointing, there was accountability taken. And essentially it was an airing of grievances, but also a clearing of the air in terms of what this team had to do to get it together so they could win a national championship. I mean, one of the players that I talked to said, it was January 20th where they all came back and started their off-season workouts last January. And now they're in the national championship game, January 20th. They all made a commitment to themselves 1 year ago that we are going to win a national championship. And now they're staring at the face of what happened after that Michigan game. This is not who we are. This is not why we came back. We didn't come back to lose to these guys. We certainly didn't come back not to win a national championship. And so I do really feel like that team meeting in which things were said, but also people listened and took accountability. Like, no, we're not going to go out like this. We're not going to go out with this being the lasting image of this team. I really think that brought everybody closer together and kind of refocused the whole reason why they all came back or why they chose Ohio State, whether you're a freshman or you're a transfer. It was to be able to do what happened on Monday night. And moments like that, as you guys know, having been on teams, can either make you or break you, right? I mean, you can have a locker room that gets divided after something like that. And instead of dividing, they all just collectively decided, no, that's not going to be how people remember us. And I think circled back on their efforts to make sure that they put it all together to win a championship.
Well, it's definitely amazing how it's all gone down. How would you assess Ryan Day's contributions? And I mean, there's no doubt he took ownership based on the way that these players defended him at the end. He probably was in there as emotional, as vulnerable, and as willing to accept the blame as anybody. That's not the case for most coaches. They're mostly going to say, you guys screwed up. You did this wrong. You did that wrong. And they will never take accountability, which we see all the time. So with him, how did he handle it to make sure that he endeared himself to his team?
I think that's a great point, is that he took that accountability and responsibility, and not just in that meeting, but in the media as well. A couple of players that I talked to post-game, Lathan Ransom was like, the fact that Coach Day took all of that negativity and all of that heat, and it also affected his family, as you guys know. I mean, they had to have armed protection around their house. They had to pull their kids out of school. They're dealing with all of this stuff personal, right? In terms of what was going on for his wife and his kids, and obviously inside that building. And he took ownership and accountability and all of the hard words that came his way, all the criticism that came his way. And Ryan Day took that all on himself. That meant something to those players, right? That meant something, that the head coach was the one that was standing up there and dealing with all this, but then coming back into work and making sure that he was giving the best of himself to his players so that they could win. And one of the players was talking to me, it was Denzel Burke, about this whole idea that it was brick by brick, right? That was kind of the theme of their season. And Ryan Day decided in the off season, how am I going to show these guys what brick by brick actually means and represents when you're putting together a team and a foundation and trying to build toward a championship. And every day after practice, he would pick one player to go stack a brick onto this little foundational wall they were forming right out there at practice. And so you think about that part of it and the coaching he had to do to get his guys to buy into what brick by brick means, but then circling back and looking at that wall after the Michigan game and after that hard conversation that they had after the Michigan game and seeing, no, this is brick by brick, and there may be storms that come our way, but we're going to continue to build the type of foundation that's needed to win a championship, and Ryan Day spearheaded all that. And so I think he gained even more respect from his players because of the way that he's handled the last month. Andrea
Adelson joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline, talking Ohio State's national championship. Her story up at ESPN.com now. Great read. We'll get that link out from the Mac and Cube Twitter feed so you can go see it. Can you please rewind and take us into the things that were happening with Ryan Day and his family? We just heard you reference some of them. You might have just given us more detail than I've ever actually heard on it. We've heard Kirk Herbstreit, I think on multiple platforms, mention some of the things that were going on, but we haven't heard a lot of detail as to just what extent he was going through. I have not heard about his children having to be pulled out of school. What exactly was happening, and to what extent was it taking place?
Well, I mean, you guys can only imagine, based on the rivalries that you have played in, what happens when you lose a rivalry game, not like once or twice, but 4 years in a row, especially when you have been chosen by a lot of folks to be the preseason national champions, right? You're a 21 point or whatever the line was going into the Michigan game, favorite, and it doesn't work out. And all the fans blame the head coach because this is 4 years in a row now, losing to your rival, and that's just not acceptable. And so, I will point you to a terrific article from Bruce Feldman in The Athletic. Spoke to the family after the game, his wife and his oldest son, about what they had to go through. And you're right, Kirk had referenced that, but the family for the first time opened up about it, the difficulty of what had happened, talking about how they couldn't go to school, the armed security that was around there, how bad they felt for Ryan, and how badly Ryan also felt for his family, that they were kind of put in the middle of all of this by a segment of the fan base. It's not all the fans, you guys know that. A segment of the fan base that was unhappy with what happened, and in a lot of instances is so unfortunate that the knee-jerk reaction from folks is to, threaten people, which that obviously has no place anywhere in our society, let alone in football where it's just a game. But that's the seriousness to which the, folks take what happened. And so, knowing now that this is what Ryan Day was dealing with off the field, while also trying to figure out, how do I get my guys to move past Michigan and realize we still can win a national championship? I mean, think about the pressure he himself faced. I got to protect my family. I'm scared. The family's scared. His wife is scared. His kids are scared, dealing with those types of emotion, but you're still a head football coach, and you have to present, yourself as somebody who believes, to put away those fears, right? Who believes we can do this. And so I think the fact that he was able to accomplish this, it underscores, we already knew he was an elite coach. I mean, look at his record beyond Michigan, right? This is a guy who had gone 47-1 against Big Ten teams not named Michigan, right? He's has the best winning percentage among all active FBS coaches right now. It's just that there was so much toxicity around and vitriol around this Michigan game that affected him in so many different ways. The fact that he was able to come back from that and lead this team to a championship must have felt incredible in more ways than one for him because of everything he had to deal with off the field.
I can't even imagine some of the things that you referenced and him kind of going through that. You talked to a lot of people around the program, obviously, to put this story together. Any idea of what sort of the expectation might be or what they anticipate things looking like going into next year?
Well, obviously, they expect to keep it rolling. Talked to Ross Bjork, their athletic director, after the game, and he was very clear that one team is not going to define the program, right? We're not going to allow whatever happens in that one game to color our view of what is expected here at Ohio State. Now, does that mean that that's like putting a back seat to the expectations of the game? Absolutely not. But I think the messaging here is that this is a program that is set and in position to continue to put themselves in a spot where they can win national championships every year. If you guys go back and look at this, and I did, and it's mentioned in the story, if there had been a 12-team playoff going back to 2014 when we got the first 14 playoff, Ohio State would have been in every single playoff. I mean, the lowest they were ranked, I think, was 7th in the last 10 years. So it's not as if this program has not been in position, right? They have been. They've just now benefited in the first year of the 12-team playoff. They could have previously. Remember the one year, and I'm blanking on what year it was, they finished 5th. They lost to Purdue that year. That was a championship caliber team. They just, had that bad loss and couldn't overcome it. Well, now you can have a bad loss like Michigan and overcome it. And so I think we'll continue to see teams like Ohio State that have been in the mix but have just been left out or on the outside looking in or a couple slots away have greater and more opportunities in a 12-team playoff. I think that benefits programs like this. They benefited with the first 14 playoff as a number 4 team. They benefited, this year. So there is no let up. You've won this one. Well, it's time to go win another one. And I firmly believe, and I know that they believe in the conversations I've had with Ross Bjork, that they feel like they can continue to be in position to win more championships moving forward.
Would imagine they will. A lot of pieces to replace, obviously, a lot of veterans that had played a lot of football that are not going to be taking the field next year. So as you look at the Big Ten and kind of survey it from top to bottom, would it be Ohio State who's sitting in the driver's seat going into 2025?
Well, I think in Mark Schlabach is a way too early top 25. And God bless him, by the way, for putting out our way too early top 25 every year, because that is a very tall task and difficult task to do. But obviously, if you look at Ohio State and quite frankly, if you look at Penn State, he's got Ohio State number 1 in his way too early top 25, and he's got Penn State sitting there at number 3. And we talk about the veterans coming back, right? It was Michigan in 23. You looked at those veterans they had coming back. It's Ohio State this past year in 24. Well, Penn State has got a huge number of veterans coming back off of a team that made it to the semifinals, and Drew Aller and their 2 running backs. Obviously, some key players they have coming back defensively as well. Yes, they lose some guys, but when you've got that core group on offense returning, well, you got to feel pretty good about what those chances mean for you moving forward. So I agree with Schlabach and what he has with Ohio State 1 and Penn State 2, neck and neck in the Big Ten, in my view. But then, I don't think Oregon's going anywhere with the way that Dan Lanning has recruited, the job that he has done there. Obviously, hugely disappointing for them, not to be able to win the national championship after going undefeated in the regular season and win the Big Ten in year 1. But the fact that they have built up that roster and program to a point now where they can continue to be in that mix, I wouldn't overlook them either. So those would be, I think, the top 3 favorites and probably the top 3 consensus favorites in the Big Ten headed into next season.
Andrea, great stuff. Thank you so much for joining us. Greatly appreciate the time and hope to catch up with you again soon. It's good seeing you in Miami.
Yeah, great to see you guys, and thanks for having me again.
Absolutely. There you go. Andrea Adelson joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline, discussing her article that's up now at ESPN.com on Ohio State winning that national championship and what it took to actually get there. I want to focus in on a couple of those preseason top 25s. Who do we anticipate being in the playoff? Do we agree with some of the actual top 5s or 10s or more or less? We'll get to all of that when we come back on the other side. First, Greg, tell our listeners about Shannara Flooring.
Shannara Flooring's great because Fu has made it great. He's the owner, and he's going to give you his number directly, so you can just call out, reach out to him, and get things taken care of around your home. We know that replacing your floors in some cases is a massive decision, whether it's replacing carpet, whether it's upgrading to hardwood, whatever it may be. Let me tell you, Shannara Flooring, they're the group that understands those concerns and will be respectful of your home and will get the job done right. Put your mind at ease by going with a group that's been staffed from top to bottom with people of the highest integrity. So whether you are trying to go and just take a peek, or if you want to go and learn more, if you want to act on it now, When it's time for new flooring, ask yourself, call who? Call Fu. Call them direct at 205-518-6423. And you can see all the new styles for 2025 at shinaraflooring.com.
All right, we'll talk more about next college football season and some of the best players, best teams that will be appearing in it right after this on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. We were talking Jeremiah Smith earlier in the show before Andrea Adelson hopped on with us to talk Ohio State's path. Is it yesterday? If you tuned into the show, you heard us drafting Ohio State players. If we were starting a college football team this year, specifically from their offense, is where we focused on. And Jeremiah Smith, I think a lot of people would have 13 for 293 touchdowns in the playoff as their MVP of the playoff. He was one or two selected from that offense for all of us. If you were selecting just players going into next season, Greg, is he number one? Is he in your top five, top three? Where would Jeremiah Smith be off the board if you're just drafting players to start your own college football team for next season?
He would not be number one for me. He's a wide receiver. I mean, how often does a wide receiver go number one overall? How often should a wide receiver go number one overall?
How many have?
Keyshawn Johnson's the only one off the top of my head I can think of.
Did Calvin Johnson go number one?
Two.
It hasn't happened much, no.
Because it's not a position of massive significance. It's an important position and has gained even more significance in recent years because of where we've gone as a sport and how matchup based it is. And if you have guys that can create their own shot and get open every single time, then that's great. That's hugely advantageous.
Harry Gilmer, you're just going to disrespect him like that? In the 1948 draft? Out of Alabama, by the way.
I'm familiar he went to Alabama, but I consider the modern era draft to be slightly different.
Now, he was H-back and receiver, so I'll give you credit for that, but you're just going to act like Dave Parks out of Texas Tech was not drafted first overall in 1964. That's
no, I'm not.
Typical you.
No. Davy Parks.
Irving Fryer out of Nebraska, number 1 overall in 1984.
Know that name.
That's a legit wide receiver.
That's one.
Number 1 overall. You mentioned Keyshawn was also number 1 overall. It doesn't happen much.
That's it. It's the only one. So I said Keyshawn because the only one in my lifetime that I can remember.
Well, I just gave you all of them in your lifetime.
No.
And before your lifetime. So that was it. That's all we got.
Gotcha.
The ones I just mentioned.
All right. So sounds good. There's been one in my lifetime. So no, Jeremiah Smith wouldn't go number 1.
How about 1939, Kai Aldrich?
That's in
first overall out of TCU.
My grandparents were born in 36.
Center put his hand in the D.
I see why you don't want to go past like 1970 now.
My new favorite player, Kai Aldrich. I need a jersey. Chicago Cardinals took him number 1. No wonder they moved.
They might have moved twice since then. They went to St. Louis and then they went to Arizona.
What are we doing?
Unreal.
Is he top 3? Who's number 1? Lagway?
Yeah, Lagway'd be up there for sure. Still need to see a little more development there. I think that he's on his way for sure.
Yeah, I'll take my chances on
Arch Manning,
Lagway, or Lenore Sellers.
No, doesn't throw it well enough.
You taking Arch before Lagway right now?
No, I'm just saying we're talking about people that might be in the mix.
Dylan Stewart?
No. Good. Very good player. Aller?
Jag you saw.
At right guard, not a left tackle. I'd have to think about it. I think it's a good conversation that we could continue to have. I just know that it wouldn't be Jeremiah Smith.
Who would be your first overall player taken for next year in college football? Next on Mac and Cube in the morning. Final hour of the show. Best player returning in college football next season. Who would it be for you? If you're drafting players to start a college football team for next year off of players that are going to be available, who would that be? We got win totals. We've got top 25s. If you go by Mark Schlabach's, which Andrea referenced on the show a couple of moments ago, Greg, he would have Ohio State 1, Texas 2, Penn State 3, Notre Dame 4, Georgia 5, Oregon 6.
Ohio State
Clemson-
can't be 1, by the way. Well, can we just start there? And this is going to be something we talk about a lot.
But
I'm not in the camp of gotta beat them till proven otherwise.
you got to knock them off the mountaintop.
They're the one.
King until someone slays them. Clemson, LSU, BYU, SC
BYU's gonna be
10,
good. SC's gonna be good.
Iowa State 11.
I was another podcast I was listening to. Someone was like, "Can you rank Bama right now?" I'm like, what? Nope, can't. Not in the top. Certainly not top 25. Just can't. Nope, not with the number 1 recruiting class and with a lot of.
I thought they just were saying in general, what top 50, top 100, just can't do it. Can't put them in there. Too many unknowns. We're going to leave them out. Asterisk. Heisman odds. If you went by FanDuel's Heisman odds, we're referencing best players in college football. Who would you take? Who do you think has the best odds to win the Heisman Trophy next year? John, I'll allow guesses from you as well.
Best odds is going to be Arch Manning.
It's not.
Well, it should be.
It isn't.
It should be the best odds.
Second best at plus 950.
Caden Salter.
Didn't see the tape on where his odds are to win the Heisman next year. Kate Klubnik would be behind Arch Manning at plus 1,100. Drew Aller, same. Nico Iamaleava, same. Jeremiah Smith plus 1,700. Carson Beck plus 1,800. Julian Sayin plus 1,800. Dante Moore plus 2,000. Lenore Sellers plus 2,000. There is one quarterback ahead of Arch Manning.
Gunnar Stockton.
That is not it.
Jalen Milroe.
It is not him. Same former division.
Garrett Nussmeier.
It is Garrett Nussmeier at plus 900.
Got him.
On the fourth guess.
How mad are you about it? Oh, he's got the turnover gene.
He does, and he will give it back to you. It's actually going to happen. Believe it or not. You can say it won't, but it will. I'm not mad about it at all. We're talking about Ohio State can't be one. Let's talk about the things LSU's got to replace. Start with both tackles, by the way. Let's get that done.
You can get by without tackles.
Tight end's gone. Top 2-3 receivers going to be gone? I understand having your quarterback returning is great. It's wonderful. Kyron Lacey's not going to be there. CJ Daniel's not going to be there. You'll get Aaron Anderson back. Now that's big.
He's only their best player.
You have a good transfer class coming in. Better than Nussmeier?
No, I'm telling you, your best weapon last year, he's their best weapon. All this panic about, we're losing this guy, losing that guy. Their best player was without question Aaron Anderson at wide receiver last year. Kind of amazed at how many people disregard that.
He was a good player.
You think?
I just don't know. Nussmeier last year, 4,052 yards, 29 touchdowns, 12 picks.
Who cares?
64%. I'm just throwing out the numbers of what he did.
I'll give
Some
you a
people
number.
might not know.
I'll give you a number.
5.
I think Nussmeier's really good. I think Lagway's really good. The thing about the Heisman, like I don't care about the Heisman. You know that. If we're going on,
I'm just giving you what their odds were to.
How high are you on Lenore Sellers and his growth this upcoming year?
I think the sky's the limit for Lenore Sellers. I worry more about the cast around him.
Obviously.
And let's just be honest. I love Coach Shula. I think he's great. And I love the fact that he was at least there with him last year. But that's going to be different. It's a different play caller.
Yes.
So you just sometimes that makes no difference. Sometimes it makes a lot of difference, either in a good way or in a bad way. We just don't know. So you have to at least take it into consideration. That's another part that I look at and say, not really sure. But I will also say this. Shane Beamer has been low-key very successful in the portal. Now, he hasn't gotten to go back to some of your points that you like to make. He's not getting super high 5-star elite started 5 years guy. But think about some of the Mario Anderson, Joshua Simons. How often did we talk about Kyle Kennard here on the show going into last year?
Very little.
Very little. So he's.
I had him at Georgia Tech his last game at Georgia Tech. I thought he was fine.
Yeah, he's a decent player.
Solid.
But we didn't. He's gotten more guys that I don't think we really anticipated were going to do a whole lot than a lot of other folks. So I do have some confidence that he'll bring in some players that are going to help and probably be better than we're talking about or realize. But the cast is still. It's you can't look at it and say that's a strong cast. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure exactly what that's going to look like. So, and I believe most of their portal gets so far this year have been on the defensive side. Rashul Faison, running back out of Utah State. Have you seen the tape? I don't know if that's going to help South Carolina a whole lot. Yeah, I think he's pretty productive. I'm going to have to go watch the tape on Troy offensive lineman Boaz Stanley. I'll give you one guess where he's from.
That's a cool ass name, though.
Actually, I don't know if he's
Boaz
from
Stanley?
I don't know if he's actually from North Oconee.
Feels like
He's from Utah.
Hartford. Oh, okay. Yeah.
He's from
EUTAW.
Bogart, Georgia.
Bogart.
Dad from Boaz.
Humphrey Bogart.
Bo Weevil Festival, right?
I think it's Bocephus Festival.
Same thing. But I don't know. I don't know how. I mean, let's be honest. They lost Robbie Ashford.
Auburn
He's
have been the
gonna
same
go.
since.
You say that, and he's going to be a starter at Wake this year.
They got Air Nolan also coming in. Forgot about that one.
Who does? Wake?
South Carolina.
Oh. Aaron Nolan's going to South Carolina?
Mm-hmm. Apparently. According to 247, he is committed. So I just there are things around it that I think are going to really have to help him. But if you're just talking about playmaking ability, I'll put Sellers up against anybody in college football. But if you're talking about winning games right now, I'll take Lagway. And I'll probably take Lagway before Nussmeier. I like Nussmeier. I think he's tough. He's gritty, competitor. He can make all the throws, but he'll go and give it back to you every now and then.
It's true, but the good outweighs the bad, I think. And I do think another year, he doesn't need... Look, Will Howard was the interception guy. He was the catastrophic mistake guy. Was he not?
He had it in him.
Okay. And it worked out. There's a bunch of guys that are going to take a big leap this year that are going into year two. I'll tell you another guy that could take a huge leap this year. Avery Johnson, Kansas State, year two in the system. How much better was Rocco Beck from year one to year two at Iowa State? Like, think about all these guys that have gotten way better in year two in the system. Lagway included. Year two in the system. Going to be a lot better. Going to be way advanced. Lenora Sellers might be that guy this year. Huge step. But we have also, in fairness, we have also seen a million examples in which guys look great year one, just playing ball, only to regress year two when they put more on his shoulders.
Fair.
So it can go both ways. It really, and people never want to think about the possibility of the regression year two, but it's a real thing. It happens. It's called the sophomore slump. I hate it, but it's a reality. So that being said, if I had to have a guy for next year, I would probably prefer to have a guy that had been in the system for more than 2 years, that can handle the load. Now, I'm not talking about being a starter for more than 2 years. I'm talking about having been in the system for more than 2 years, which is why Lagway would not be at the top of my list right now. Because as they pile more on, and he's not just going out there and balling, and he's playing free and all this other stuff, I would go more than I'd go more in the direction of an Arch Manning, Garrett Nussmeier, like that type of guy that had been in the system for 3+ years. Arch has been in for 3, Nuss has been in for 4. Those guys are really beneficial, I think.
The other part too, Greg, is we've seen these older quarterbacks later make these huge jumps. You know, like Joe Burrow, different offense, but made a big jump. Jaden Daniels. We thought Jaden Daniels was going to be pretty good at LSU. None of us thought he was going to have that kind of year. Like, oh yeah, he's elusive. He moves well, pretty good. He's a little bit erratic at times. Maybe tries to keep plays alive too long. And then all of a sudden, bam, there it was. Some of the guys that have stuck around and had that super late year of college football have still taken a pretty big jump. And maybe Nussmeier is that guy this year. Also, maybe he can do some of that. But Lagway's going to have Jaden Ball behind him, Jacoby Jackson, Eugene Wilson. I think he's going to have. I mean, you lose Elijah Badger, who was great, and we talked about him watching his Arizona State film. I mean, he was dynamic, and I thought he was a very quiet, really good get for them last year. Not having Montrell, I don't love, but you got a ton of talent at running back. You just don't have the grinder that Montrell was. I think the offensive line's got a chance to be a little bit better. Austin Barber, Jake Slaughter gone, but that group hasn't been great since he's been there. If they can just find a way to kind of keep it steady and slowly improve, it can be enough. So I feel pretty good about it. I don't think they've done a ton of damage offensively in the portal. The Sturdivant kid from UCLA is coming in, big target wide receiver, 6'3", 205. But I think he's poised to have a massive year. And it'll be different because there'll be a lot on him. People are going to know about him. They'll have a little bit more film on him. But I think right now, for me, I'll probably take Lagway. Is there one that sticks out for you, John? Number one player you would take that's returning in college football next year? Jeremiah Smith, DJ Lagway, Lenore Sellers, Garrett Nussmeier.
Are we just doing
Carson
offense?
Beck.
Because I might look at Anthony Hill.
Anthony Hill, good player. I think I'll probably take Dylan Stewart first.
You take Dylan Stewart number 1?
No, over Anthony Hill. If we're just talking defensive players.
Yeah, gotcha.
Caleb Downs will probably be up there.
Yeah.
And throw him on punt return too. Let him do some damage there.
But I think we're just taking
I'll tell you what, I might take Leonard Moore.
I still think I'll go Jeremiah
Guy
Smith.
going to number 2, lockdown guy, his second year.
Not bad.
It's a good starting point.
There'll be some big-time defensive players coming back next year.
Dylan Stewart be near the top of my list for. The only thing is, man,
the guy just does uncoachable things, Greg, like the flexibility, the bend, the twitch.
He does all that.
Anywhere.
I get all that, but I didn't see enough teams try to kick him out on counter this year. I'm not saying he's allergic to stopping the run, but I know it's not his favorite thing to do. And I can
outside
tell you,
of Courtney Upshaw, give me an end that is
Ryan Anderson.
Okay,
all the Bama
2
boys.
The rest of them.
Tim Williams.
Denzel Duval. No, not Tim Williams. No.
What?
Unless you ran counter on third down, he didn't have the chance to.
No. All joking aside, like I think Kyle Kennard really made Dylan Stewart better.
It's totally fair.
Like, so I'm not saying that Dylan Stewart won't be a complete freak show takeover of the game guy that I got to account for on every single third down situation. I know I got to deal with him. He's a huge problem. But I don't think he's going to like it when I run it right at him on first and second down. You know why? Because I couldn't run it the other direction because Kyle Kennard is going to chase it down if I ran counter. If I had a slow developing, late hitting play, Kyle Kennard's making that play on the backs, coming from the backside.
Yeah.
And guess what? Those linebackers off the ball that had played 700 years of football combined, who, by the way, maybe the best sleeper in the draft to me is number 17 from South Carolina. Like, that dude's going to play a long time. I love the way that guy plays.
It is. We do sometimes conveniently leave out how certain players benefit from other guy. And there are instances which it probably doesn't make a difference. Like, we think Devontae Smith would have been great no matter what, whether he had Judy Ruggs, any of them, Waddle. But those other guys kind of probably could have stood on there by themselves also. Like, do we think Malik Neighbors was great without Brian Thomas? Yeah, he'd have been really good. But sometimes it is convenient for us to just leave out the players who take some attention away or offer up some one-on-ones or offer up more favorable situations for those guys to go make plays. It's just, it's kind of human nature, I guess. But it will be interesting to see Dylan Stewart, like you said, teams who say, okay, we're going to run this scheme at you and see if you like it. And then not having to be as concerned about Kyle Kennard. Also, Greg, not having to be as concerned about those guys in the middle they had last year.
Yeah.
Because they're all going to be gone.
Right.
And that's a massive concern.
Yes.
But all I know is when I see that guy's face mask like 4 inches from the ground, when he's ripping off the edge on an offensive tackle and he's still able to stay on his feet, and maybe the handwork, how advanced that is for a freshman, I'll take those tools and I'll build around that. We'll give it a go, by God.
You can work with that.
We'll give it a go.
Don't bend over too far backwards to try to give that one a go.
Well, you don't have to bend over too far backwards to find great products at Bromberg's either.
No, you don't. Bromberg's is terrific. They are first class, and I have been shopping there now for 8 years and have yet to have something that I purchased that I have had regret about. They have taken great care of me, and they've helped me a lot because I am not some jewelry expert, far from it, but they've pointed me in the right direction on a handful of different occasions to help me get something that I know my wife would like and something that might be in our family for many generations, or at least I hope when I make those purchases, that's what I'm buying it for. So know that when you walk in Bromberg's, you can trust them and they're going to take great care of you in one of their 2 locations in Mountain Brook Village and at the Summit.
All right, when we come back, Richard Hendricks, former Alabama great, joins us. He was on the call for Bama's game last night, and just get a peek at the entire SEC basketball season thus far right after this on Mac and Cube in the morning. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. 9:20 Wednesday, January 22nd. Going to shift the conversation from college football to a little bit of college basketball, which we have not spent enough time discussing yet this year. Bruce Pearl going to join the show on Friday, by the way, so we'll get a conversation with him before we head into the weekend. But now, Richard Hendricks, former Alabama great, going to join us on the Buyers Right hotline. Let's start with the game that you were on last night. Another 100-point game for the Alabama Crimson Tide. They take down a solid Mississippi State team. It feels like, Richard, as long as they avoid the turnovers and some, not even most or all of the threes are going down, this team's going to be in pretty good shape.
Yep. I mean, Alabama's obviously, they can shoot the basketball, and Vanderbilt can shoot it as well. But Alabama played good basketball last night. They were able to control the game and got the lead early on with spurts. And when they can go on the runs, shooting the three ball, it makes them very tough to play against when you have to come from behind. It's just a matter of if Alabama can sustain the intensity to put teams away for 40 minutes. They've had the ability to show that teams can get back into the games, but they were able to finish off last night.
Really impressive. And I think what's most important, look, you're not, when this version of the SEC, if you expect to be at your best every week, I don't know how you can be every game, twice a week. It's just, gosh, it's a heavy lift. So I feel like the Ole Miss performance was absolutely an anomaly as opposed to a revealing of massive flaws. Is that fair?
Well, not really. I mean, other than the aspect of that it's a home loss. But you have to look at the fact that Alabama was coming back from Texas A&M. You have tough travel. It's a Tuesday night game, which is a quick turnaround when it comes to preparation, playing from a Saturday, and then to a Tuesday. And then you're at home against an Ole Miss team that is actually a really good team. They returned a lot of high-quality players. You have a head coach who's been to a national championship game. He's in year 2 of getting his system and culture installed. And Ole Miss is a really good team that understands how to play at a slower pace, and they can defend at a high clip. They had a big man with Malik Dia who can score in the low post, which gives Alabama some problems. They've been able to show some problems against teams that can post up and score down low. So that, to me, was not a game that you say this was some type of a fluke or whatnot that Alabama lost the game. You're going to have moments like that in this season's SEC play because all of the teams are really good. And it's going to be a tough game, even if it's at home or on the road.
We're talking with Richard Hendricks, former Alabama great, who now calls games for ESPN, was on the call for Bama, Mississippi State last night. As far as Bama avoiding future pitfalls, is it as easy as turnovers and threes? What else have you seen that needs to be cleaned up just a tad that could be a potential issue down the road?
Well, I think, your turnovers is something that you have to be much better at. And the shooting woes are a problem. But I think the potential that Alabama can run into is if teams have a little bit of a diversity of play style. And what I mean by that is they've shown to be able to struggle when you play against teams that can slow down the tempo and defend and have strong rebounders to end the play with one possession. Where Alabama is able to take advantage of you is to play at a high pace, and they have superior level athletes in the SEC. And if they miss the shot, because of the spacing of the offense that they're shooting shots from the outside, it's difficult for the teams to rebound and box out against them. And Alabama gains an advantage by getting offensive rebound putbacks. They're also gaining another advantage by putting the pressure on you, getting you in the foul count, and now they're shooting free throws early and often. So if a team can slow down the tempo, I think that's a big challenge for Alabama. So it's always going to be about tempo. I don't know if it's going to be about limiting certain aspects of the game, but it's a harder feat to do, and other teams have to have the personnel and the poise to be able to do it, and they can't even be playing from behind. But it's a challenge because when Alabama's really playing.
How would you assess the growth of where they can go from here? Because I've been amazed at how much better they are from a rim protection standpoint compared to last year. Not that they're crazy elite in that area, but it feels like significant progress has been made. I am a little worried about Cliff getting hit in the ribs last night. I don't think that's going to be the end of the world. But I've had ribs before, and it just takes time. It's painful, but don't really anticipate a lot of limitations from him. So how do you feel like they've progressed around the basket defensively, and how do you think Cliff will bounce back from the rib injury last night?
Well, he was able to check back into the game and to be a factor, which I do think that Alabama addressed some issues from last year's Final Four team by bolstering up the roster with more positional size, which can allow them to be a little bit more physical and impose their will on the defensive end. The rim protection is now there with Clifford Amore. The only challenge that I do see is that I do think that it's difficult with the style in which they play for a big to get a lot of reps when you're playing against a low post player who can impose his will. When you're playing a lot of pick and roll coverage, it's difficult to get those reps. I would pose it like football. If you're always playing a certain style and playing defense, and now you play that one oddball team that's running some old school triple option, you haven't had a look in practice of playing against that style of play. And that's what you kind of have with Alabama in the post play. And Amore can be able to do that, but he's shown some issues with guarding that in the post. But they have some big time players to come in and back up with Mo Diabate, who has that physicality, who's able to give him some toughness under the board. Grant Nelson and his size playing the four is big when it comes from weak side shot blocking. And Jaron Stevenson at the three gives you length to definitely have a third guy who can make it difficult for other teams in the interior.
We're talking with Richard Hendricks, former Alabama great, now with ESPN. SEC hoops in general is maybe better than it's ever been. Statistically, with what's happened thus far, that has been proven. Do you think that there is a lot of separation between Auburn and everyone else? Maybe Auburn and 2 or 3 teams and everyone else? Where do you sort of draw the line of a group of teams or a team that's in a little bit of a different category, even though the league's extremely deep?
Well, I do have to give the nod to Auburn, that I do think that right now they are the best team, but obviously you have a challenge with Janai Broome being out with an injury. I think it speaks highly of what Bruce Pearl's been able to do to make the adjustment when you have maybe some people believe as the leading candidate for National Player of the Year who's out for a significant amount of time. But his ability to command a double team, score in the post, and be unselfish and kick it out, it gives Auburn an element that no other team in the league has to that degree. Now, Alabama's good. They have 2 players in each position that are solid and strong, and they have the physical attributes to impose themselves on you on both ends of the court. But when Auburn's shooting the ball from the outside with Miles Kelly and Tahad Pettiford, and you pair that with the interior play of Dylan Cardwell playing his role as a rim protector and a rim finishing big, as well as the heart and soul of what they're trying to do, they seem to have a chemistry that looks a little bit more than other teams. And you pair that with the fact that they were ousted in the first round in the NCAA tournament to Yale, there's a motivational factor that they seem to be playing with that I don't know if other teams can have. But it's a deep league. They're really good teams. I would give Auburn the slight nudge over Alabama at this point in the season, but Alabama's coming, and you have to watch out for Ole Miss. Tennessee is always going to be physical. And Kentucky, the way that they play with a lot of synergy. And they're only going to get better and better as the season goes under Mark Pope's leadership.
Lastly, is there a team, maybe it's Florida. I know they're not really flying. No one's really flying to the radar because everyone's freaking ranked. It's like, I'm like trying to find that team that could all of a sudden flip the switch and make a run, but I don't know who that is because I feel like everyone's kind of been given their flowers. Is it an A&M? Right. Is it a Florida? Like, who's that team that is not getting enough love and yet might be able to make a deep run?
Well, like I said, I think it's Ole Miss, and Florida is a good one to talk about. But as you mentioned, you can pick any of these teams and say who's not getting talked about enough, and then you go back and look and say, well, hold on, that team is 15-3 and they're ranked in the top 20. So how are we not talking about them? It's just the fact that you got 8 other teams that are ranked in front of you. But this is a legitimate race where teams have to make sure that they handle their business and not have a slip up to continue to be in contention. But they're all good teams. I look at what Ole Miss has, and you have, you brought in a big man. And now you have the returning players with Matthew Morrell and Juju Murray and Jamin Brakefield. Those 3 guys were there in the first year, and now they have the confidence and understand what playing for Chris Beard and playing in the league is like. And they've been able to add some portal pieces that have been impactful, like Sean Padula, as well as Dre Davis, who came over from an NIC championship team at Seton Hall. So they have some pieces to compete, and you see they're starting off 4-1 in the league with a signature win on the road at Alabama. And so they should not be overlooked. But this is a league where you go 1 through 16. There isn't a single team on the ladder that you can overlook, and that's what makes this season so special.
I'm interested in just your thoughts on Pettiford at Auburn, a true freshman to be able to come in and do some of the things that he's been doing off the bench specifically. Just what are the separators that you see through your lens that watches basketball a little bit differently than most of us do?
Oh, wow. Well, I'll tell you this. What I see from Tahad Pettiford and many other of these players that I'm seeing now in this transfer portal NIL era is that many people, including myself, thought that, when you started to have the compensation for players, that there could potentially be something that is negative for the game. But a positive that I have seen when you now have really good players who come in as McDonald's All-Americans, high profiles, and have expectations to start and play big minutes, because of the compensation, they seem to accept their roles much better coming off the bench. And when they come into the game, they are immediately impactful. You see the same thing at Alabama for Aiden Holloway. These guys, if this was another period of time, can very easily be issues on teams because they don't get the minutes in the starting roles that they have. And to see a player like Tahad Pettiford to accept a role as an All-American coming off the bench, and instantly be prepared to work your minutes in a short amount of time and be productive, it really speaks volumes of what it is. And quite frankly, I know people don't want to hear this in amateur sports, but the word that these guys are is professional. And I say that not in the stance of a noun, but it's an adjective. And they come right in the game and they do a phenomenal job. And he's an example of that. And for a basketball person like myself, that's a beautiful thing to watch.
You need to be doing bigger things, Richard. You're awesome. Every time you come on, man, we really appreciate it. And hope to see your career continue to blossom in broadcasting, and hope you'll join us again.
Thank you guys so much. Y'all have a good one.
Absolutely. Talk to you soon. Richard Hendricks, former Alabama great, does a great job calling games. And just, Greg, I have never heard that point ever from anyone, that being compensated almost forces you into role acceptance just a little bit more.
That's a good thing.
It's brilliant. It is. It's a great thing. And it's a great point. And I do think it's been a small sample size, but I feel like we've seen a little bit more in basketball than football. Because I think you and I have a lot of examples of the petulance that comes with being compensated as well. And it's even more frustrating. Now, there are a lot more individuals to base the sample size on in football than basketball.
Right.
But it's a great point by Richard.
I think it is. And I really love what he says and saying, like, hey, man, like, you can look all you want at these guys that are doing things that are maybe uncomfortable for them. But in time, I think it's probably the best thing for these players' development. And we have talked so often about, the NIL world and the compensation is actually hindering these guys' development. Well, maybe it's forcing them to be more realistic about what kind of player they are in some cases. Like, hey, role acceptance is great, but this is where you need to grow. And this is how your future as a basketball player, whether it's internationally here at the college level or in the NBA, this is where you are going to be able to be at your best, is in this role. Smaller role, not a on the ball point guard or a volume shooter. Maybe you need to be something else. And I think it makes a lot of sense.
If that's happening, it might be a good question for Bruce Pearl on Friday. I think he'd be honest with us. I think he'd be upfront about it, to just see kind of where he is on that and how it affects guys and how he believes it affects guys. Actually, this is odd. I have a follow-up for Richard. If we can get him back, I want to ask him about it real quick. We are in the middle of flu season. Make your home healthier with Trane's Clean Effects Home Air Cleaner. It removes up to 99.9% of airborne particles, including those that cause virus, 100 times more effective than standard air filters, 8 times more effective than HEPA room filters. Find a dealer near you at Trane.com. It's hard to stop a Trane. Richard, there was such an awesome point that you just made about the compensation and role acceptance after. I want to follow up with this because you played professionally for a while as well, so you understand basketball representation. Representation in college football is very new. We've heard multiple stories now about the sliminess that's coming with it, taking 20%, different things here and there. Now, obviously, agents have not been allowed in basketball for a long time, but they have been a part of the high school game, the AAU circuit, the sneaker deals. Do you think that some of that may be because the representation in basketball has been around at this age and in these doors for a long time? Therefore, it might be better than a lot of the guys that have just found their way into college football recently, and it hasn't been allowed. They've been shoved out the door. They've been stiff-armed forever. And that's why maybe you have a lot more shadiness there, but the basketball representation understands it a little bit better, and they're able to deliver that message, and therefore everybody's so kind of on the same page as you described.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, as a guy, I grew up playing AAU since I was 10, 11 years old. There's always going to be people on the AAU basketball scene from a young age, and you understand that you are on the fast track to be a professional, to be in the NBA or be a pro when you're 13 years old. And you have so many people in your ears. And the thing is, compared to football, development physically is not something that you really have to have. The nature of the sport, when you compare football to basketball is far more forgiving than football is. You can't put a tackle out there on the field in football who's not prepared to play. He's going to cost you your quarterback. He's going to cost you your game. And that can cost you the season. And also it stunts his development because he's not ready. But on a basketball court, I can pick a kid up who is underdeveloped in so many aspects and throw him on the court. And he can still find his way to be impactful, and it might not even impact the game. You make a turnover as a quarterback in the football game, you fumble a ball, and you lose the whole game, and it costs you the season. You miss a shot and have a turnover in basketball, what does it really matter? You get the ball right back on the alternating possession. So the nature of the sport doesn't really allow the two sports to have the same comparison when it comes with dealing with things psychologically. What it's done now on the basketball side, in my opinion, with the compensation, it has awakened the players to understand that I need to be better in the moments that I have. 15 minutes, 20 minutes out of a 40-minute game is a lot of time to really come in to be effective. And a lot of players in years past always view things like, I have to be in the starting five. I need to be playing 30 minutes a game. I need to get a certain number of shots. The game has now transformed where you're playing at a higher pace and you have more opportunities. And with teams understanding that I got to get my players in the game in the non-conference slate because they will get in the portal if they're not playing, then it puts coaches to have to try these players out. And players also understand, if I don't give you something, then I can't ask for anything on the compensation. So it creates, to me, a little bit more of a professional type of mentality that I saw in my 13 years of playing, that's how you have to approach it. In football, I don't think you can do that. I didn't play, other than in the 8th grade, and I guess I was a fourth when I did, but I was bigger than everyone. But I tell you, you can't just throw a kid out there because he wants to play. It's going to cost you everything. So a lot of the other things that you have to promise someone with behind the scenes and agents and whatnot and people tampering, it's going to be speculation because someone's just trying to bolster their roster, and you can't get a chance to let a guy go out there and get those reps. And from a coaching standpoint, you can't develop them because they might want to play and they're not ready to play, and then they can leave. But in basketball, I can put a kid in the game for 8 minutes and see what he can do. If he misses a shot, if he makes a turnover, it's just one possession. It's not a whiff on the offensive line, and I gave up a sack on 3rd and long, and this was our time we had to make a surge here, and we can't stay on the field. This is not a missed assignment in the secondary that cost us a big play. It's just a missed jumper. It's just a ball that went out of bounds. It's just a missed backdoor cut that gave up a layup. That's just 2 points. We get it right back. And see, and basketball players understand that. And it's a little bit more of a different mentality, but what it's created now is a little bit more of a alert mindset that, hey, I am getting 15 minutes. It doesn't matter that I am coming in off the bench. And if I'm coming off the bench and I get a corner three and it's a good look, then I have to take ownership to try to knock that down because I want more minutes, and I want not only my coach to notice it and give me more time, but somebody else is watching too. And then if someone else is watching, I can get compensated for that. And that's how I think, to a degree, it's a little bit of a positive. And I wasn't a big proponent of a lot of the things, but I have seen when I observe it, you never would have seen Alabama last night in the game coming off the bench had 52 points coming off the bench. Aiden Holloway had 21. What do you have? Aiden Holloway had 20 points in the game, 20 plus points and 22 points in the game. Mo Diabate had 22 points in the game coming off the bench. You go back 15, 20 years when I played. When did you ever see that?
No.
You know, the starters played 32 minutes, and if you were the eighth man on the bench, you didn't get in the game.
No.
It was two players got in, maybe a third. You come in and play a little bit. Now everybody goes 10 deep. And you should do that because, hey, if I don't play this kid, he's going to leave. And the kid also knows they're paying me X amount of dollars, and I like making X amount of dollars. So I better go in here and do some work when I get my moment. Now, I will say this. I do think that the compensation creates a bubble for college athletes in basketball that is irrational and is not going to be represented in the professional market when these guys get ready to go to the next level, because it's a numbers game. And I don't understand how people in this analytics age do not get it. It's 30 teams. It's 15 jobs. It's 450 slots. There's 60 picks to get picked every single year. 30 of them are guaranteed in the first round, and 15 of those players are coming from international waters in situations. And every kid that's on these teams that's making X amount of dollars because they got paid in recruitment thinks they're going to be a lottery pick making millions. And the reality is you're going to go undrafted, and you're going to be overseas making money on a team that's going to be far less than what you're making as you're getting, courted around playing from these NCAA Division I programs. And that's going to be a rude awakening for a lot of guys when maybe they've mismanaged the money they've made from a couple of years in college basketball, and you find out what your true market value is worth on the professional level. You see it in the NFL. You got guys in college making more than guys who are getting to the conference championship game in the NFL. And you guys know after playing high-level ball, these guys can't make reads at all. It's mistakes all over the field. And I see that on the basketball court. And that's the sad part about it. But at least you get to see a little bit better quality ball on the college level when I do look at the game.
I got like 30 things I could follow up with there, but just awesome points, man. I appreciate you hopping back on. Just absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for the time. We'll do it again soon.
Anytime, because I'm not going outside today. It's too cold.
No, we're inside.
I'll be inside.
What position did you play in 8th grade? Were you a tackle? I mean, red zone threat? Like they lob it to you? Like what were we doing?
Greg, I was an athlete. That's what position. If I had one of them profiles, that's what they'll put over there beside my name.
Just wrecking shop.
That was it. Didn't matter.
Yeah.
So you kicked.
Defensively, I did. I kicked off. I played tight end. I played defensive end. You put me in on some quarterback packages when we need to get some things done. You give it to me on fullback. If we got a big play that needs to be done, I'm going to make the catch.
What were you like? You think you were like 6'4" in 8th grade, something like that?
Oh, I know I was. I was 6'3" for sure. Probably already 215 pounds. I was ready.
Just bullying guys out there.
I was ready.
Absolutely.
I mean, I look back on it. I might have made the wrong choice. I do think with some training, I might could have been a tight end, but
no doubt.
Who knows?
100%.
Too much physical, maybe a little too much. I don't want to be out there sweating and putting pads on and hitting all that kind of stuff. Like that's just everybody at heart is a basketball player. I think this like you're a basketball player and then you go play football. It's not the other way around. When you play football, you get hit and go play basketball. Everybody hoops.
Why do you think they're all bringing these? They're bringing all these small forward, power forwards in from these small schools, trying them out as tight ends every year. You see it. I mean, every year.
You should. Hey, I know y'all not going to agree, but I think we're the best athletes. But that's for another day.
It is. We'll have that whole conversation. Absolutely. Thank you, Richard. Great stuff, man.
Appreciate you guys.
Richard Hendricks, just awesome, man. Dude's a star in the making, I'm telling you, in this broadcasting business. We'll be back with more Mac and Cube next. I make fun of how bad I am at math often on this show, but even I could follow where Richard Hendricks was going there with the college basketball numbers versus the NBA draft numbers versus the jobs available in the NBA, not to mention on top of that, the influx of European players that are going to hit the draft every year. That was astonishing, Greg, to hear those numbers that he just quickly threw out of what everybody's making now. You have to use your imagination there a little bit, but he's essentially telling you it's a lot more than you're going to get to go play in Europe. And it might not be more than what the guys are getting in the NBA, but those NBA spots are limited, specifically coming out of college. And guys have to understand that reality, that it's not going to be the same. And there are things we could go way down a rabbit hole with of what that means for the future of today's college athlete and what it's going to mean after they play college sports. But because we're all going pro in something other than sports, right?
Of course.
The NCAA told me back in the 90s.
No doubt. Still telling us.
But that numbers game was wild to hear from Richard just a moment ago. If you missed that interview, you need to go get the podcast, by the way. That was fantastic.
It was great. But I also, I kind of knew that. Like, I mean,
I don't know if I knew it to the extent, though, and I haven't thought about the difference in money, the way he was talking about it. I mean,
do those guys make any money over there? I've never known.
I think they make decent money. James Cason, who was the all-time leading, I think, scorer and rebounder at Birmingham Southern. He played in Iceland for a while and made pretty good money. I think Richard has told us that he made a pretty good living over there. I just don't think it's desirable, and that's the problem with it. I think
you're just a guy.
I think it's a shorter season, and you make pretty good money for that season, but guys don't want to go live in Greenland or
you're a long way from home,
Denmark or something like that, and make that living. So, yeah, it can be a lot. We'll continue talking about it next on Mac and Cube in the morning. I also love the point Richard Hendricks was making with us about the physical development difference in football and basketball, and how you can go out there and fail multiple times in basketball, and it's not going to crush your team. Might crush your spirit for a moment, but you can pick it right back up in the next possession or next possession two, 3 later. I can remember when Kevin Garnett went to the NBA and everybody just it was all criticism. He was a stick figure. He was too small. He was going to get pushed around. And then in certain games, he kind of did get pushed around early. And I would think to myself, are you not watching the dunks? Are you not watching this guy that's 6'10" step out and hit 18-foot jumpers consistently? Kobe Bryant missing 20, 13, 18, 22 shots in games. But then, like, are you not watching the dunks? Like, are you not watching this guy get to the rack? Are you not watching him take people off the dribble? It's just, it can come a little bit later in basketball. And you have more time to make up for it in basketball, I think. So the being paid while also development portion of that also made great sense when Richard put football next to basketball.
Yeah, I think it makes perfect sense without question.
It's going to be interesting to see how it goes in the SEC. Very deep, obviously, in basketball this year. Appreciate Richard hopping on. Appreciate Andrea Adelson, Kirk Morrison as well. If you missed any of those podcasts, all great. Talking NFL playoffs, talking Ohio State's run in the playoffs. And we'll be back tomorrow to discuss college football championship odds for next year. Also, should Oregon be your national champions? It sounds crazy, but tomorrow I'll tell you why maybe the NCAA doesn't agree with you. Yeah, that's a weird one. Some coaching news at Auburn that we'll get to tomorrow. Transfer portal news tomorrow. All that and more, 7 to 10 a.m. on Jocks 94.5. 3-man front will be coming at you next.